Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Most Dangerous Valkyrie of the Marvel Universe. Chapter 1. S.H.I.E.L.D. Headquarters, in Nick Fury's office. How is it, May? How threatening is this man named Zhan Lu? When Zhan Lu traveled to this world, the resulting spatial fluctuations attracted the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, due to the inaccurate technology and other reasons, it took a long time for S.H.I.E.L.D. to find Zhan Lu. At this time, Zhan Lu had already opened a martial arts gym in Chinatown, and publicly claimed to his disciples that he was not from this world, and that his qigong could make ordinary people produce superpowers. No matter how this kind of rhetoric sounds like the deceit of a fraudster, or the sleep-talking of a mental patient. However, his martial arts school has no distinctions, and there is no charge, so there are still many people who go to apprentice. As S.H.I.E.L.D., which takes the safety of the Earth as its own responsibility, it is of course impossible to allow an alien to wander around the city at will, and even open a museum to teach students. Who knows what he is teaching? If it is something like sacrificing sacrifices to evil gods in exchange for power, it will be very bad. Therefore, S.H.I.E.L.D. launched an investigation on him as soon as it found Zhan Lu. But the first agent sent to investigate never achieved his goal. It's not that this agent's professional level is not good enough, but that Zhan Lu can only speak Chinese, but he doesn't understand English, let alone speak. And if it's Chinese, he can understand whether it's Mandarin, Cantonese, Hokkien, or even minority languages. The only thing is that they don't understand English. The disciples he accepts must also be able to speak Chinese, otherwise they will not be accepted at all. No way, Nick had to change to another agent to investigate. Although there are quite a few agents who know Chinese, but considering that the alien himself has an oriental appearance, Nick finally chose Melinda May, a Chinese female agent. More than a month has passed, and May finally came back to submit the task today. May poured herself a cup of coffee first, then sat across from Nick. Frankly speaking, when I first received the task, my first feeling was that you gave me a chance to take a vacation. We don't know how many counterfeit products like this have been debunked. I thought it would be the same this time. But when I joined the martial arts school, it surprised me that things could be different this time. What he taught to all his disciples is the same thing, but it sounds very systematic and can be perfectly self-consistent. So I decided to follow along to see if it really works. Oh, I almost forgot, you are our Iron Cavalry, and there is nothing we can do to hide it from you. Nick smiled and complimented May a little. May was not happy with his compliment, but stared at him seriously. This time, the matter may be very serious. Nick was taken aback, and sat up straight. How serious? May didn't speak, but held out her hand. Nick watched intently, and saw an electric spark appear out of nowhere, dancing back and forth between May's 5 outstretched fingers. In order for Nick to see better, May moved her hand to the coffee cup on the table, and the electric arc jumped from May's finger to the metal spoon on the cup. May put her hand on the back of Nick's hand again, and Nick immediately felt a weak electric current flow through his body, causing his hand to tremble. Hiss! Nick gasped. May is an ordinary person, and Nick knows that well. But now, May has superpowers. Nick is convinced that this is not an illusion, nor a blindfold, but a superpower. His qigong is real, it can really produce superpowers in people. Now you know how serious it is. Nick got up abruptly, reached out to grab the phone. Crossbones, I need 2 teams of fully armed soldiers, gather downstairs. He covered the phone with his hand, turned to ask May, how many students does he have now? How many people have superpowers? May turned her head and thought for a while. The number of students is about 500. Nick cursed, turned his head and said to the crossbones on the other side of the phone, I need 10 teams. May suddenly smiled and said, however, I am the only student with superpowers. Huh. Nick was stunned for a moment, seeing May's mischievous expression. He laughed angrily, I should really throw you to Siberia. The operation is cancelled, let everyone disband. It was a false alarm. He hung up the phone, sat back to his original position, crossed his hands, put them on the table, stared at May with his one eye, and said every word, if you don't want to take a walk with the penguins tonight, you'd better give me a walk. Good news. May shrugged, well, I'm just a little hyper. Can you imagine? A person who has practiced martial arts to a certain limit suddenly sees the direction of improvement. This kind of happiness and joy will inevitably make people lose their composure. Besides, it's a superpower. Who doesn't want to be different? Are you right? Nick stared at May for a while, then finally nodded and said, "Okay, I forgive you. Now, we can return to the original topic. Let's continue talking about this alien martial artist. He actually came from a parallel world on another Earth, where martial arts flourished, and the world was ruled by a group of beings called warriors. He never shy away from saying this. As long as some students ask about it, he will tell some stories from another world. It's just that most of the students basically listen to it as a story and don't really believe what he said. Although he has taken in a lot of students, they are all registered disciples. They only get started within 3 months. When they get started, they are like me who can successfully generate superpowers. He calls this the current propelled realm. Only those who have started are considered his official disciples. The key to getting started is willpower. In other words, you are now his official disciple. That's right, and it's the only one at the moment. May said with a little pride. It's just the beginning. If I study for a few years, I will become stronger. But, again, you should be able to imagine how much havoc it would cause if such abilities were learned by other bad guys. The problem is that my teacher's 3 views are different from other martial arts masters. He doesn't care about the behavior of the students. Nick listened carefully, nodded and said, "This is normal. His 3 views should be shaped in the world of the Valkyrie. In a place where there is no government restraint and the Valkyrie rules the world, the 3 views must be very distorted." May also put away her smile, and said seriously, "He cannot be allowed to continue like this. We must stop him. It is common sense that dangerous knowledge cannot be widely disseminated." May looked at Nick expectantly, waiting for him to order arrests. But to her surprise, Nick rested his chin on his hands and looked thoughtful, but he didn't give an order. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "May, you just said that the key to getting started lies in willpower." "That's right, that's true." May was a little confused, but still answered Nick's question honestly. "Then how many people in S.H.I.E.L.D. do you think can get started?" Nick's one-eyed eyes shone with greedy starlight. Don't you think?" May guessed what Nick was thinking, and was completely surprised by his way of thinking. "That's right, May. I'm going to recruit agents from within S.H.I.E.L.D. to form a squad of warriors, and then I need you to tell them everything you've learned. Is there a problem?" "Of course there is no problem. In fact, Zhang has no secrets, and the explanation is very detailed. And you know, I am used to bringing some recording equipment with me." As May said, she proudly took out a small information storage device from her body, held it between 2 fingers, and handed it over. "Haha, that's great, May." Nick laughed and reached out to take the information storage device. "You may continue to lurk for a while, so just treat it as a vacation. A vacation where you can become stronger. I think many people must be dreaming of it." May smiled and got up and left Nick's office. In the next few months, May went to the martial arts hall every day to receive Zhang guidance, and then sent the recording to S.H.I.E.L.D. at night, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. sent her a summary of the warrior team's difficult questions, and she asked them during the day. Zhang attaches great importance to his first official disciple, and answers every question. Although Zhang has seen agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before, but in the world of Valkyrie for more than 10 years, he has almost forgotten the general plot, and only has some impressions of some familiar protagonists. If it was Tony Stark, he would definitely remember it, but, May, hee. Under the guidance of Zhang May made rapid progress. The arc at her fingertips changed from short to long, from weak to strong, and the voltage gradually increased, quickly breaking through the threshold of 10,000 volts. It is a happy thing to see myself making continuous progress every day. May is addicted to the process of becoming stronger and cannot extricate herself, but there is a problem with S.H.I.E.L.D. It's impossible. May sat across from Nick's desk again, her face full of disbelief. "That's the truth. It's been 3 months now, but none of the agents in the warrior team can cultivate superpowers. But I turned in all the recordings, and what I learned, and what they learned, was the same. I believe you, May. I think there must be something wrong with this." In fact, a month ago, Nick found out about this problem, and then, he sent someone else to send in another bug. He compared the recordings obtained by the 2 bugs, and confirmed that May did not intercept the information privately, so he brought May over to discuss. How have you been these few months? Has the current improved? Speaking of her own progress, May could no longer hide the smile on her face. I think you'll be surprised when you see it. Nick, let's go to the training ground and I'll show you. The two came to the training ground. When Nick saw May facing the hail of bullets and blocking all the bullets in front of him with a wave of his hand, his jaw almost dropped in surprise. But it wasn't over yet, and then May showed her super attacking ability, and those targets that could withstand the tank's attack burst into pieces under May's fists and kicks. This is the ultimate endless palm and the ultimate emperor's leg. It is a move that matches Qigong, but this kind of move requires the cooperation of Qigong, and ordinary people cannot practice it. Moreover, it is said that the stronger the realm, the greater the power of this move. If you practice it to the limit, you can even open up the world. Of course, this kind of rhetoric should just be exaggerated, but it's amazing enough, isn't it? It took Nick a long time to get his jaw in place. It's not like he hasn't seen someone stronger than this, he's seen everything like Captain Marvel, and normally he wouldn't be so surprised. But the problem is that 3 months ago, May had difficulty even lighting a cigarette with the current in her hand, let alone using it in actual combat. It seems that we seriously underestimated this man named Zhan Lu. Nick was silent for a while. May, find a way to ask Zhan Lu why none of these agents can get in. Okay, I know. May bid farewell to Nick, left S.H.I.E.L.D., drove back to the martial arts hall, and asked Zhan Lu directly to ask her own questions. Of course, she didn't dare to ask directly, but went around in circles. Master, why do I practice at home very slowly, almost as if I can't feel any progress? Is there something wrong with my practice, or there is something that I didn't pay attention to? Zhan Lu laughed out loud. It's a very normal thing. The ultimate immeasurable Qigong is a peerless divine art, and its practice is actually very difficult. Normally speaking, an ordinary person, no matter how strong his willpower is, cannot get started within 3 months. But practicing here in the martial arts hall can act as an accelerator, which is thousands of times faster than practicing outside. Because, here in the martial arts hall, every inch of space is filled with the spirit of my martial arts, and these spirits will help people who are weaker than me to practice. And the weaker the person, the better the effect of this acceleration. To a certain extent, this makes up for the shortcomings of those who are congenitally deficient, poorly gifted, old and infirm, and give them the opportunity to compete with others on the same starting line. But what Zhan Lu didn't say was that not only his magnetic field rotation realm was at work, but to a large extent, it also depended on the acceleration effect of the system on the registered disciples. Only then did May understand. She said goodbye and left the martial arts gym, first passed the recording to him, and after a while, she dialed Nick's phone number. Nick, my understanding is that there is some kind of magnetic field around his body that accelerates Qigong practice. Thanks to this magnetic field, I can progress so quickly. And what the warrior team of S.H.I.E.L.D. lacks is this kind of magnetic field. Perhaps, you can send some scientists over to test it. After hanging up the phone, May returned to the martial arts gym and started her own practice. I didn't know that there was an acceleration bug before, so May went home to rest every day, but now, she won't leave even if she is chased away. She thought it would be fine to leave it to the scientists, and the rest of the matter had nothing to do with her, so she could practice with peace of mind. But early the next morning, she found Nick suddenly appeared in front of the martial arts hall. I consulted scientists, but scientists said that they can measure the magnetic field, but they must install a lot of equipment here in the martial arts hall. May rolled her eyes and sighed weakly. I don't think he would agree to let those nerds turn the martial arts gym into a laboratory. I thought the same, so I came here. I need to talk to him, his force value may be high, try to resolve this matter peacefully. Alright, I got it. May led Nick into the martial arts hall and came to the main hall, where Zhan Lu was answering questions for the registered disciples. Nick didn't go up to disturb, but patiently waited for Zhan Lu to finish his explanation before stepping forward to speak. I'm from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, referred to as S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm Director Nick Fury. Nice to meet you. Nick smiled and extended his hand of friendship to Zhan Lu. Zhan Lu turned his head and glanced at May. What did this fool say? Nick's face darkened instantly, although no one could see it. As the king of agents, Nick can speak Chinese, but he is used to speaking English, so when he introduced himself, he used English. To make matters worse, he understood Zhan Lu's Chinese questioning. It is the basic ethics of being an old yinbi to be resigned. He gave Mei, who was laughing next to him, pretended not to hear, and apologized in Chinese with a smile. I'm really sorry, I forgot, Mr. Zhan doesn't speak English. Then I will introduce myself again in Chinese. I'm from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency, referred to as SHIELD. I'm Director Nick Fury. Nice to meet you. Zhan Lu nodded slightly, but did not shake hands with Nick. It turned out to be a black stewed egg. Zhan Lu immediately remembered it. He glanced at it and immediately understood that Mei was an agent of SHIELD. But he didn't say anything. These external identities meant nothing to him. He was not a native, and he didn't have any respect for the federal government and the Security Council. Hello, please come in and talk. He stretched out his hand to appease the guests, and asked the two to walk towards the living room. Although they didn't shake hands, Nick was still very satisfied, at least judging by his attitude, he was still very friendly. As for the trivial matter of shaking hands, as the king of secret agents, Nick certainly knows that not all countries use handshaking as a courtesy, it's just a common etiquette in the West. Therefore, the fact that Zhan Lu didn't shake hands with him doesn't mean that Zhan Lu is hostile to him. And Zhan Lu's slight expression told Nick that this person had no hostility in his heart. The living room is also furnished in Chinese style. There is an 8 immortals table in the middle, a landscape painting on the wall behind the table, a taishi chair on each side of the table, and 2 rows of chairs on both sides, parallel to each other. The 3 of them entered the living room, and the host and guest were seated separately, and a named disciple came over to serve tea. Mei Gong respectfully stepped forward to apologize. Sorry, Master, I'm actually an agent of SHIELD. Zhan Lu reached out his hand to stop her apology, and said with a smile. When you first started, this seat has said that regardless of your background, there is no distinction in education. Therefore, if you are apologizing for such a trivial matter as an agent, then there is no need. What he didn't say secretly was that even if Hydra came to apprentice, he would still accept it. This seat accepts you as an apprentice because of you, and because you can successfully get started within 3 months and enter the realm of electric current promotion. As for your identity, it doesn't matter. You have to remember that you will become a Valkyrie in the future. These external things are like the hair on a person's body, so don't worry about it. Zhan Lu was so reasonable, which made Nick more confident in the next conversation. Mr. Zhan, our SHIELD agency is an organization dedicated to protecting the Earth. We are responsible for supervising and managing all alien life that may harm the Earth. When Nick spoke, he was very cautious and his words were more polite, so he was worried that Zhan Lu would turn his face off. He has dealt with alien life a lot, no matter what kind of life it is, he would resent being supervised. Especially beings from some higher worlds can't tolerate being supervised by a group of bugs, and it is normal to turn their faces on the spot. But fortunately, Zhan Lu didn't care about these at all. Oh, don't worry about this. I'm not interested in money or power in the world. Now I just want to promote the ultimate Wuliang faction and cultivate as many martial gods as possible. Nick felt relieved. The most dangerous moment was over, and the rest should be easier to talk about. He immediately showed SHIELD's goodwill. Haha, if it's convenient for Mr. Zhan, you might as well hang a consultant sign in our SHIELD bureau. With this status, many things will be less troublesome. Besides, if Mr. Zhan needs anything in the future, he can also directly ask our SHIELD agency for help. Our organization is an international organization, and its influence is quite large. Zhan Lu thought for a while, then nodded and agreed, it's good to be less troublesome, so as not to waste too much time. If you don't accept it yourself, the next wave may be the Snake Shield Bureau. Nick smiled even wider, opening his mouth wide to show all his white teeth. Then I'll ask Mei to send you the consultant's certificate later. Nick, this person, has always been habitual. Also, Mr. Zhan, do you mind if we at SHIELD study a lot of your Qigong? I don't mind. Of course, the more disciples like Mei, the better. Let them come here to worship the Master. As long as they have worshipped the Patriarch, they will be the disciples of my ultimate Wuliang sect. So happy. Valkyrie, the more the better. As for things like being surpassed by disciples, if you don't even have this kind of self-confidence, what kind of martial arts are you? Nick's eyes were smiling into crescents, and he asked further. There are many scientists in S.H.I.E.L.D. who are very interested in the scientific principles behind the ultimate infinite Qigong. Do you mind if they conduct research on this? Oh, in fact, there are scientists in the world of Valkyrie, and the ultimate infinite Qigong can be assisted in cultivation through scientific methods. Of course, I don't mind the arrival of scientists. I also have a little research on electromagnetism, and I am willing to exchange and learn with scientists. Although the system can provide opportunities for breakthroughs, according to Zhan Lu's personality, it is impossible to pin all his hopes on a system. If he can gather the power of the world and break through this limit by himself, then of course it would be better. If you want to break through the limit of the ultimate immeasurable Qigong 50th heaven, you must not give up on the two roads of combat perception and scientific research, and must go hand in hand. Now that someone took the initiative to send scientists over, Zhan Lu would of course welcome them. Nick is really satisfied with the alien Zhan Lu now. This is simply the golden finger that God bestowed on S.H.I.E.L.D. He had to look at Shu again and said, "Is it convenient for me to let the scientists set up some equipment here later?" "I have no objection." Zhan Lu turned his head and looked at the surrounding environment, "but my place is relatively old, and I don't know if I can fit it. In my impression, many scientific equipment are big. This is simple." Nick waved his hand and sent a big gift package to his door. "This place really doesn't fit your identity. Let's do it this way. Later, S.H.I.E.L.D. will build a large martial arts gym for you in the suburbs, and then you can bring your students to move directly. Just get over it." Since S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to show its favor, Zhan Lu would certainly not refuse. "In that case, then I will not be polite." Zhan Lu took the olive branch with a smile. The two chatted happily until Nick said that he slipped. In other words, he didn't realize the seriousness of this matter at all. Ultimate limitless Qigong. Is it true that regardless of the conditions of talent, aptitude and physical fitness, it can be practiced only by will? Of course. But of course it is much faster to practice with good aptitude, and there are some people who get started in one day. But the factor that determines the upper limit is only will. That's great. It's something tailor-made for agents. Mei taught Qigong to other agents before, but none of them learned it. I didn't know there was a magnetic field around you to accelerate it. I thought. Nick suddenly noticed that the smile on Zhan Lu's face opposite him had disappeared, and his face became gloomy. He stopped talking, quickly went through what he said just now in his mind, and found nothing wrong. "What's the matter? Is something wrong? You just said that Mei taught Qigong to other agents." Zhang Liuhan asked in a low voice. Yeah, Nick still didn't understand what was wrong with it. "Then do you know that this sect is forbidden to disclose the exercises in private?" In the system in Zhan Lu's brain, a dazzling red light flickered. Task: clean up the portal. Task content: severely punish the disciple Melinda May who leaked the exercises privately, to deter all parties, and to imitate others. Task reward: Sky Eye. Failure penalty: none. Seeing Zhan Lu's expression, Nick knew that the situation was not good. He was able to bend and stretch, and immediately apologized decisively. "I'm really sorry, we did something wrong. I'll immediately ask all those who have practiced ultimate Wuliang Qigong to come over to learn from them." Zhan Lui waved his hand, interrupting his words. "It's two different things. It is the correct order to learn art after apprenticeship. It is not impossible to learn art after stealing art. However, after being apprenticed to a master, revealing the exercises without the permission of the master is a taboo of all schools and sects, and must be severely punished." "This severe punishment, what kind of punishment law is it?" "This seat will recover her martial arts." "How can she get back what she has learned?" "Will the brainwashing make her forget?" "This seat will abolish her, it's that simple." "What? It's not okay." This time Nick quit. If there is a fine, Nick will never say anything and write a check immediately. If there are other punitive measures, Nick will also help solve them. But abolishing this solution is definitely not within the scope of Nick's consideration. Mei has made great achievements in bringing Qigong back to S.H.I.E.L.D. If people with such great achievements are not kept, but let her be abolished, how can she lead the team in the future? Besides, the S.H.I.E.L.D. is used to running rampant, so has it ever really suffered a disadvantage? The reason why I am politely negotiating with Zhang Liuk here this time is only because he may have a relatively high force value, and the cost of containing him is relatively high. It is not that he is really afraid of Zhang Liuk. Nick also drooped his face, and said in a threatening tone, Mr. Zahn, the reason why Mei leaked her exercises in private is because of the Order of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, Zhang Lu's voice also cooled down. You mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. is bigger than our faction? Mei is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. first, and a disciple of the Ultimate Infinite Sect second. I said before that identity or something doesn't matter. They are all external appearances, which are meaningless to Valkyrie. Zhang Lu turned to look at Mei. Mei, let me ask you, do you know your mistake? Now that the two sides have already ruined their faces, there is no need for Mei to make false claims. It was originally my task to come to the martial arts hall to investigate. Zhang Lu smiled angrily, haha. So, you won't admit your mistake. Mei was indifferent. She had never understood the Oriental teacher's culture. To her, the so-called sect was essentially the same as paying teachers to learn knowledge in school. I give money, and you sell me knowledge. As for whether I will resell the knowledge, that has nothing to do with you. As for the so-called sect rules, in her opinion, they are equivalent to school rules, not even low-ranking methods. If she is willing to comply, she will comply. If she is not willing to comply, you can go to court and sue me. Zhang Lu snorted coldly, and his murderous intent was fully revealed. Before you entered the sect, this seat said that if you don't agree with the rules of this sect, you can leave, and this seat will not stop you. But once you enter this sect, you have to abide by the rules of this sect. Didn't you hear clearly at that time? Mei also got a little impatient. I am a level 7 agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. First, I abide by the federal laws, followed by the Bureau's rules and regulations, and consider other matters last. Zhang Lu was completely disappointed with this stubborn disciple. That is to say, you think that Federation is more powerful than our faction, right? I originally thought that you would have the appearance of a martial god, but now it seems that you can't even break your appearance. You are really a rotten wood. Nick was also angry. Mr. Zahn, you have to think carefully. The place you are standing on belongs to the Federation and is under the jurisdiction of the Federation. If you dare to violate the laws of the Federation, don't blame us for being rude. He suddenly got up. Mei, let's go. Without hesitation, Mei followed Nick and walked out. Go. Do you still want to go? Although Zhang Lu was still sitting in his seat, his murderous intent surged and enveloped the two of them. Before the two of them went out, they felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave, frozen from head to toe, unable to move. Nick screamed in his heart, but he couldn't even move his fingertips, and it was impossible to call for help. But he immediately felt that there was a surge of electricity around Mei's body beside him, which broke the killing intent covering the two of them. That's right, to be able to withstand this seat's murderous aura, the willpower is still enough. Zhang Lu praised. After Nick got out of trouble, he immediately pressed the button in his hand and sent a signal to the outside world. Afterwards, he felt relieved for a while, and turned his head to look at Zhang Lu. For such rebellious aliens, after all, they still have to be taught a lesson before they can speak properly. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who had ambushed outside the door, quickly surrounded the martial arts hall. Tanks on the ground and planes in the sky completely surrounded the martial arts hall. This gave Nick an illusory sense of security, and he declared with great pomp. You will be arrested for attempting to assault a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and it's too late for you to regret it now. Haha, it's so funny, a group of rats are trying to threaten a Valkyrie. Forget it, today I'll let you all know what a marshal is. Seeing that the turtle in the urn is still so arrogant, Mei was furious, mustering all the strength of her body. The electric current quickly flowed through her whole body. She jumped up, and with a move of the ultimate emperor's leg, she blasted Shang Zanliu face to face. 10,000 volts. You should also taste the taste of electric current. Zhang Lu sat in his original position without raising his eyelids. This heavy chop hit Zhang Lu's face, but Zhang Lu didn't even mess up his hair. Nick and the two were shocked. Mei's leg was heavy. Nick knew very well that this kick would turn the tank into scrap iron, but it had no effect on Zhang Lu. Nick suddenly had an ominous premonition. He was about to stop, but it was too late. Zhang Lu flicked his fingers lightly, and a weak electric current flew out and hit Mei's body. This electric current looked inconspicuous, just like the one that May gave a demonstration in Nick's office back then. It was subtle and dim, but after May was hit, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and all the energy in her body was immediately vented. With a loud boom, a figure was blasted all the way from the martial arts hall, knocking over a tank in the outer encirclement. A group of agents thought it was an attack, and quickly surrounded them with weapons. "No, this is Agent May, call the medical team." "No, I haven't lost yet." May was covered in blood, but still struggled to stand up, looking at the figure. Shirin came out of the gap. "Come again," she roared, and the electric current mustered again. "Didn't you say that willpower is the core? Didn't you say that a fierce battle and a moment of understanding can surpass others' 10 years of hard work? Then today I will let you see how strong my will is. Since 10,000 volts is not enough, then 20,000 volts." Nick was sitting on the helicopter, looking at the ruins below, feeling frightened and angry. The fight is still going on, but it might be more appropriate to describe it as a one-sided beating rather than a fight. May broke through her limit time and time again, from 10,000 volts to 20,000 volts, 50,000 volts, and 100,000 volts, but all her actions were useless. Zhonglu was just like the beginning, let May hit him without moving, and then popped out a weak electric current, which was able to blast May far away. The so-called planes and tanks have no meaning to this ferocious alien. Looking from the sky, a straight passage stretches from Chinatown to the sea. This is a death tunnel blasted out by using May's body as a cannonball. Although Nick had a hard heart and couldn't hear the wailing voices of the innocent people in the ruins below, this incident would definitely make him suffer a lot, and thinking about it made him feel overwhelmed. What made him even more depressed was that he didn't know how to end this matter. He made a lot of mistakes in this matter, and everything he talked about was fine, but he slipped his mouth, which caused the subsequent conflict. He didn't know there was a system, and now he thinks that this is his wrong judgment. He hasn't figured out what is important and what is indifferent to Zhonglu, an alien. He used his own way of thinking to measure aliens, which led to such a serious mistake. The second big mistake was that he seriously underestimated the force value of this alien. Originally, he thought that he had overestimated it, but when Zhonglu showed the true combat power of the Valkyrie, this terrifying ability like a still shocked him. Although he has also seen the strength of Captain Marvel cannot be copied, and Zhonglu can obviously be produced in large quantities through training. From Zhonglu's words, it is not difficult to see that he thinks that May may also become a warrior, and in S.H.I.E.L.D., there are quite a few people like May. Even if it can't reach the level of Zhonglu, just looking at May's terrifying combat power now, you can know how much benefit this will bring to S.H.I.E.L.D. But now it's all in vain. He has decided to give up May now. As long as Zhonglu is satisfied, he can definitely train 10 or 100 agents like May. At that time, what kind of Avengers alliance is needed? Wouldn't it be good to direct the martial arts alliance? This kind of thing, just thinking about it, feels a rush of heart. However, the most urgent task is to solve the immediate matter. May, I'm sorry. He raised his head and looked at the battlefield in the distance, where the lightning lingered and shot straight into the sky. May's whole body was drenched in blood now, and her bones and internal organs were severely injured in many places, but her spirit was unprecedentedly excited. She desperately pumped up her inner energy, and began to squeeze the cells frantically, squeezing out more electric current. Current drive, 150,000 volts. More currents were generated, causing her hair to stand on end, with light blue electric sparks flickering at the ends of her hair, and her whole body was surrounded by the outgoing current, just like a humanoid lightning. Again, ultimate endless palm. She once again launched an attack on Zhonglu, who was strolling in front of her. But unfortunately, the result didn't change anything. Zhonglu still received the heavy hand in the face, and then knocked her into the air with a snap of his fingers. May was bounced off like a rubber ball, leaving a long and deep gully on the beach. Zhonglu strolled over and said leisurely, "The will is not bad, but unfortunately, it's not enough." Half of May's body was submerged in the water, struggling to get up, swaying, staring at the culprit in front of her eyes with hatred, without speaking, but squeezing the cells again frantically. He who shakes his fist at the weak is a coward, but he who shakes his fist at the strong is a warrior. You have a good mind, and you do have the appearance of a martial god. Unfortunately, you made a mistake and violated the rules of the school. Zhang is indeed very regretful. This is his first disciple in this world, and he is also an example that he wants to set up, but, what a pity. The original positive role model has now become the object of leeway. Killing her is very simple. Yimei's current level is just a matter of slapping him, but if the killing is too simple, S.H.I.E.L.D. will inevitably come to harass him later. Hit with one punch to avoid 100 punches, and simply let those guys experience the power of the god of war, so as not to always come to him to make noise. But it's not good if Mei is too weak, just in case she can't show the might of the Valkyrie at all. Zhang stretched out a finger, let the current form a loop, and then transformed it into a magnetic field. The current propulsion is just the beginning. The ultimate goal is to convert the electricity into magnetism, and let the current propel it into a magnetic field to rotate. If you succeed, you may still have a chance to escape your life. Mei spat heavily on the ground. Bah! I just want to kill you now. Zhang laughed loudly. That's right, that's what we want. War gods should be like this. Love is love, hate is hate. If you want to kill me, then just do it. Mei summoned up her energy again. Current drive, 200,000 volts. The ultimate endless palm. This time Zhang didn't continue to defend anymore. He mustered the power of the magnetic field to rotate the first layer of heaven. Yu reading www.yuakanshu.com, then lowered the power flow, and gently bumped into Mei's leg. The result this time was completely different from the previous mere defense. Two huge forces collided and exploded. Nick, who was on a helicopter in the distance, was watching the battle from a safe distance. The sudden explosion startled him. Immediately afterwards, the gust of wind from the explosion directly blew the helicopter almost out of control. The driver was also frightened and turned around and left. Seeing that the scope of the battle had expanded, Nick quickly retreated for a while, but he was reluctant to bear the first-hand data, so he insisted on watching from a distance and did not leave. This blow blasted Mei directly from the land to the surface of the sea, and she bounced on the surface of the sea like a floating water, hitting a small island before finally stopping. Although this blow was controlled to a relatively low level by Zhang, the damage it caused to Mei was still higher than the previous ones. Mei's right hand has been distorted and deformed, and it seems to be abolished. But Mei's eyes are still firm. Pain will only make her stronger. Current drive, 300,000 volts. The ultimate endless palm. She jumped up high, condescending, switched to her left hand, and once again challenged Zhang, who was standing on the sea. Zhang nodded in satisfaction, and the low-flow magnetic field was still spinning, pushing it up gently. The two palms clashed, resulting in a more violent explosion than before. The air wave emptied the sea water, forming a huge sphere. After maintaining it for a while, the sea water poured back. Again, current drive, 400,000 volts. The ultimate emperor's legs. The battle between the two became more and more fierce, and they didn't notice at all that under the influence of the aftermath of the battle, a large amount of seawater was stirred up, forming waves several meters high and rushing towards the shore. New York City, located in the southeastern part of New York State, is the largest city and largest commercial port in the United States. It is located at the mouth of the Hudson River in southeastern New York State, on the brink of the Atlantic Ocean. It consists of 5 districts: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens and Richmond. It is the most populous city in the United States. New York is a world-class city. Because the economy is too prosperous, New York has always been full of tourists, and the seaside of New York is the most frequented place by tourists. The beach here is sunny and the water here is clean and clear, and today is no exception. Groups of tourists, wearing bathing suits, sunbathe on the beach, swim a few laps in the sea from time to time, come up for a drink when they are tired, and maybe have an affair or something. But I don't know when. There is a flash of lightning in the far sea, but the strange thing is that the sky is still clear and there is not a single dark cloud, but there seems to be faint thunder. The weather at the seaside can change as soon as it is said, and many steady tourists have already landed, ready to take a bath and leave. But before they reached the bathroom, they heard exclamations from behind them. When they looked back, they were frightened out of their wits, and saw a white line surging towards the sky, approaching the coast within a few breaths. This is clearly a huge wave, more than 10 meters high. It's a tsunami. The people on the beach were frightened and turned around to flee, but how could their speed compare with the huge waves? They were run over by the huge waves within a few steps. The huge wave carried violent energy, and it hit the shore directly. In the face of this natural disaster, all man-made buildings were like building blocks, instantly pushed down, swept away, and destroyed. Nick on the helicopter is about to go crazy. You can fight all the time, and you can still make such a big noise. What place is this? This is New York. New York is not only the financial center of the United States, but also one of the financial centers of the world. It directly affects the global economy, finance, media, politics, education, entertainment and fashion industries, and is recognized as the capital of the world. New York is also one of the industrial centers of the United States, with clothing, printing, cosmetics and other industries ranking first in the country, and machine manufacturing, arms production, petroleum processing and food processing also occupying important positions. But now, half of New York has been submerged by floods, and the damage caused by this is simply incalculable in terms of money. This natural disaster affects not only New York and the United States, but the whole world. The United Nations headquarters is also located in New York City, on the banks of the East River on Manhattan Island, and the biggest impact of this wave of water is on the buildings along the river. Nick saw with his own eyes that the United Nations headquarters was already ready for sailing. The only thing he is lucky about now is that the buildings farther from the coastline were only soaked by water instead of being washed away. The severity of this incident has risen from a violent incident to a terrorist act. In other words, even he couldn't hold back. If Zhonglu killed Mei before, he could still pay some price to keep Zhonglu, but now Zhonglu has been upgraded to a terrorist at the same level as Magneto King Eric Lancher, no one can't keep him. The US military is out. A fighter plane flew over Nick's head, he sighed, and ordered, "Go back to S.H.I.E.L.D. There is no need to continue watching. Those lunatics in the military will use any means to eliminate such a terrorist. Especially now that the battle between Zhonglu and Mei has reached the outer seas. If they are still in the city now, the military might be wary of using the mouse, because they are afraid of accidentally injuring the citizens and have reservations. Then they in the open sea will see the highest level of technological weapons of the Earth people. The military does not consider Mei's safety when doing things. Any accidental injury is a reasonable loss. But fortunately, the ultimate Wuliang Qigong training method he obtained before is still in his hands. Although Zhonglu is not used as an accelerator, if scientists study it, it may not be impossible to replicate Mei's success. He is now thinking about how to open a new project to conduct research on this Qigong practice method, and where to get the funds. Also, for this matter, how can we take the responsibility of S.H.I.E.L.D. and who should be blamed? He was thinking about it when he suddenly heard the sound of explosions behind him. He looked back and was surprised. More than a dozen planes exploded in the air before launching missiles, like huge fireworks. Zhonglu withdrew his hand, and looked at Mei, who hadn't retracted her joy. If you want to wait for someone to save you, then put out that thought. These technological creations are fine against miscellaneous fish, but they are vulnerable to Valkyrie. If you want to survive, there is only one way to go, and that is to upgrade the electric current to the magnetic field. A look of despair appeared on Mei's face. Regardless of her body that was about to collapse, she desperately squeezed the cells again. The current as thick as an arm rolled around her body, ionizing the surrounding air, producing a burnt smell. I'm going to kill you. Powered by electric current, 400,000 volts. The ultimate emperor's leg. She dragged the lightning like a thunder snake, leapt high again, and bombarded Shang Zhongluzhong. Nick looked in surprise at the crashed plane in the distance, and the lightning flashes rising into the sky again, hesitating in his heart which card he should use. If Zhonglu is underestimated again, the whole card is flipped, and it doesn't work, then it's meaningless. While he was hesitating, the driver in front turned around and reported, "Sir, Director Pierce is on the phone." "Come in." "Nick, who's that over there in New York? Is it Magneto? How did the plane explode?" At this moment, Nick had the urge to throw all the blame on Magneto. He had a way to make everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. have a unified caliber. Anyway, Magneto is already notorious, and he doesn't care about having one more blame on him. You reading www.uakanshu.com. In this way, Zhonglu can be saved, and then he can use both soft and hard tactics to make him do things for himself. But he immediately dismissed this idea, because now he is invincible by showing the 6 great powers. If he doesn't give him a little bit of a show, I'm afraid that the future cooperation will not be achieved at all. Even if they barely cooperate, S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot dominate at all. Both soft and hard, you have to be both soft and hard. Before giving sweet dates, you have to give him a stick first. Pierce, this is an alien, not Magneto. Agent May of S.H.I.E.L.D. is fighting him, but the situation is not optimistic. You should be able to see it on the satellite. There is a high energy area on the satellite, and I can't see anything clearly. I need your on-site information. He operates by manipulating electric currents and magnetic fields, and ordinary aircraft cannot approach him at all. Mutants. No, he's not a mutant, but he has superpowers. Maybe, I can contact Professor X and send the X-Men out. No, the military is opposed to involving mutants. This matter must be resolved by humans. Nick, I know you have a lot of tricks, now is not the time to hide. This matter should be resolved by the military first. If the military can't solve it, it will be resolved by S.H.I.E.L.D. If S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot solve it, next year's S.H.I.E.L.D. budget will be cut in half. Pierce, this matter is not that easy. Nick, I'm not discussing with you, I'm notifying you. Pierce threw down a word domineeringly, and hung up the phone. Nick's face was ashen, and he punched heavily on the back of the seat in front of him. Politicians. Another wave of planes passed over Nick's head, heading straight for the direction of the electric current soaring into the sky in the distance. Nick could see clearly that these planes were specially made of special polymer materials developed by Magneto, and the missiles mounted under the racks were likely to contain nuclear warheads. He told the helicopter pilot to drive faster to prevent himself from being affected by the aftermath of the nuclear bomb. The light from nuclear bombs can blind people's eyes, so he took out a pair of sunglasses and put them on before turning his head to look. Zhang frowned as he looked at the plane flying again from afar. The Valkyrie's spiritual sense told him that there was something on a certain plane that could hurt him. Presumably, it should be a nuclear bomb. His current magnetic field rotation is only Juchongtian. Although the nuclear bomb can't kill him, it can still cause him some damage. Of course, the premise is that he stands there and lets the nuclear bomb go off. Now, he decided to destroy these planes ahead of time. Because, although once the nuclear bomb explodes, he can quickly leave the center of the nuclear explosion, and the nuclear bomb will not hurt him at all, but May will definitely not be able to bear it. May either succeeds in transforming, stepping into the realm of magnetic field rotation, turning against the wind, killing herself on the spot, or failing and being cleared by herself. There is no third choice. Look carefully, this is the rotation of the 9 heavens magnetic field. Zhang slowly raised his hand, transferred the power of the magnetic field to rotate the 9 heavens to his hand, and pointed at the plane flying in the distance. The fighter pilot only felt the plane shake and lost control. The eagle calls the tower, the eagle calls the tower, the plane is out of control, the plane is out of control. There was immediate chaos in the base. This plane is not made of metal materials at all, how does he control it? Zhang spun his wrist, and the several planes in the sky were like yo-yos in the hands of a child, being thrown back and forth by him. See clearly. Zhang deliberately slowed down his movements, revealing all the mysteries of the power of the magnetic field rotation in front of May. May watched intently, trying her best to comprehend. The military couldn't hold back anymore, launch the nuclear bomb immediately. General, the plane is out of control. After the nuclear bomb is launched, we can't get out. This is an order, launch the nuclear bomb immediately, repeat, launch the nuclear bomb immediately. Everyone will remember your contribution to the Federation. The pilot was silent for a while, then reached out and tapped the launch button. There is a guidance system on the nuclear bomb. As soon as it leaves the launch pad, it will fly to the target under the control of the remote base. Zhang sighed, the opportunity disappeared. With a squeeze of his hand, all the planes and missiles with nuclear warheads squeezed together into a metal ball, which fell from the air and failed to explode at all. Do you understand? Zhang turned to look at May. May took a deep breath, concentrated, and frantically squeezed her own cells again. Current drive, 500,000 volts. A more violent current emerged from May, but there was still no sign of a qualitative change. Zhang sighed, and continued to attack with the lowest flow rate. The shock wave caused by this heavy blow is stronger than the previous one, and the waves brought up are higher than the previous ones. New York, which has been plagued by disasters, is about to usher in the second wave of floods hitting the city. Current drive, 500,000 volts. Current drive, 500,000 volts. Current drive, 500,000 volts. Tried again and again, and failed again and again, May was still unable to overcome the difficulty of the qualitative transformation of the current propulsion to the magnetic field, and in terms of current propulsion, she was also stuck at 500,000 volts and could not be promoted again. May was panting heavily, her body was already like a rag doll. Although Zanlu has always only used the lowest flow rate of attack, the power of the magnetic field rotation is still far more amazing than the electric current. The hours-long battle had already caused unimaginable damage to May's body. There is great terror between life and death. Between life and death, all the energy and spirit of a person can be gathered together. This is the easiest time to break through. The performance in the battle of life and death directly reflects the upper limit of a person's potential. But unfortunately, it seems that your potential is nothing more than that. May's eyes had already dimmed, and all the deep-seated hatred had disappeared, leaving only fatigue and powerlessness inside. You devil, do you know how many people were killed by the previous tsunami? Zanlu lightly picked out his ears, and flicked his little fingertip casually. You still have the heart to think about this, it really isn't pure enough. It seems that it is necessary for you to know what the magnetic field maniac is. Or, after you die, I can slaughter New York and send some people to be buried with you, what do you think? Zanlu spoke lightly, but May, who was opposite, looked at his indifference to human life, and felt cold all over. Do you still have humanity? May cursed sadly. Human nature. Human nature can make you achieve magnetic field rotation. Can humanity allow you to defeat me? Human nature has a bird to use. Go eat shit. As the battle progressed, the epileptic character in Zanlu's bones was slowly aroused. He traveled from the Earth to the world of Valkyrie, and the three views have already been formed. Although he has been polluted by the three views of the world of Valkyrie, he is usually more like an ordinary person. Only when fighting, the more the power of magnetic field rotation is used, the easier it is for go mad. Epilepsy is not a psychopath who only knows killing, but epilepsy must be paranoid. As a Valkyrie, you must be dedicated enough. On the one hand, you want to defeat me, on the other hand, you want to save people, and on the other hand, you want to use morality to condemn me. You think too much and do too little. If you want to rescue them, then you should use stronger willpower to push your strength even stronger. As long as you can defeat me, you can naturally save whoever you want. After defeating me and saving people, you can naturally condemn me with morality whatever you want. This order cannot be messed up. You don't have the strength to support it, but relying purely on thinking, can you solve the problem? It's pointless to talk about it. May urged GU again, squeezing the cells crazily. The magnetic field is turning, what is it? The current is driving, 500,000 volts, go to hell. After the two fought against each other a few more times, Zanlu finally confirmed that May did not have the qualifications to become a war god, or in other words, she could not step into the realm of magnetic field rotation before the Earth's magnetic field was polluted by the magnetic field rotation. That being the case, it is useless to keep her. It seems that I still overestimated you after all. Your willpower, concentration, and even awareness are far from the standard of the martial god. In that case, I'll give you a ride. You can, rest assured, die. I will send New York City to be buried with you. Zanlu raised his hand, and slapped May's forehead with an ultimate endless palm. Although the power level was still only driven by electric current, under the increase of complete state, May was under this palm. Have, die, none, pregnancy. However, Zanlu's palm hit was empty. A woman's voice came from behind. Sure enough, the villain died because of talking too much. But I want to thank you. If you weren't so talkative, I wouldn't have come to save people in time. Zanlu was startled, turned around and looked back. Not far behind, I saw a woman standing in the air, with blonde hair, square face, wide eyebrows and wide mouth, wearing a red and blue tights, full of heroism, and the seriously injured May was held in her arms. Thank you, Captain Marvel. You are seriously injured, I will send you back for treatment first. The two chatted there as if no one else was there, which made Zanlu very upset. Treatment, he sneered, it's not necessary. She's going to die today, I said. The woman named Captain Marvel raised her chin arrogantly, and cast her eyes down at Zanlu who was standing on the ground. She won't die today, I said so. After finishing speaking, she pulled up on the spot and was about to fly away. Want to fly? Then you have to ask me if I agree. Zanlu's raising of his hand as the power of the magnetic field to turn the 9 heavens, and he is attacking Captain Marvel in the sky. After finally meeting a master in this world, how could Zanlu let her go just like that? Captain Marvel is the most powerful combat force that S.H.I.E.L.D. can use. It's just right to use her to show the might of Valkyrie. Although the current self may not be able to beat Captain Marvel, but has Valkyrie ever been afraid of a challenge? Those who have the courage to punch the stronger are called Valkyrie. Captain Marvel finally gave up after being pulled back by the magnetic force after several attempts. She landed slowly and put May on the ground. Nick will come to pick you up in a while. I'll subdue this guy first. War God, right, just relying on high enough force, you can act recklessly. I will let you know today that the earth is not a place where you can run wild. Haha, I wish for a strong man to fight against me. Zanlu changed his usual gentle and polite demeanor, revealing his madness. After the magnetic field rotates to the 9th heaven, you can fly, but it will consume a lot of energy. Now that the enemy is at hand, saving a little is a little bit, so Zanlu has no intention of flying up to fight Captain Marvel. Zanlu summoned all his strength, stepped on the infinite battle step, approached Captain Marvel, and hit her face heavily with an ultimate endless palm. Captain Marvel dodged lightly, and then punched Zanlu's lower abdomen, sending him flying with one blow. Although Captain Marvel's punch was heavy, it didn't contain too much energy, and it couldn't break through Zanlu's protective energy at all. Moreover, Zanlu launched the ultimate quantification Ju, and with the power of flying back, completely dispelled Captain Marvel's attack. It didn't fall. When Captain Marvel arrived just now, she had already seen Zanlu's attack. She didn't know that it was Zanlu's power after releasing the water, and thought Zanlu was nothing more than that. Her punch just now was originally intended to defeat Zanlu with one blow, but underestimating the enemy, this blow did not accomplish anything. Come again. Feeling the tyrannical strength of Captain Marvel, Zanlu was extremely excited. The god of war has always only punched the stronger, and only in this way can there be room for improvement. Either I will kill you, or you will kill me, this is the battle between the gods of war. Feeling his determination, he finally loosened the bottleneck that was trapped in the magnetic field rotating the 9 heavens. Zanlu urged his strength again and charged Captain Marvel. This time Captain Marvel didn't dodge, but threw a heavy punch against him. Zanlu's fist hit Captain Marvel's face, and Captain Marvel's fist also hit Zanlu's chest at the same time. Crackling. There was a crisp sound, and Zanlu didn't know how many sternums he had broken, and was blown away by a punch. With this punch, Captain Marvel didn't hold back his hand, the power from the space gem surged out, and directly blasted Zanlu's ultimate Gang Chi, and the ultimate quantification art only had a negligible effect. Zanlu barely stabilized his figure in midair, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of blood. With just one punch, he was seriously injured. He looked at Captain Marvel again, only to see that Captain Marvel just tilted his head, and his hair was not messed up. Captain Marvel's tyranny exceeded Zanlu's expectations, but this is the best way. Only when the enemy is strong enough can you squeeze out your potential. Haha. Zanlu looked up to the sky and laughed wildly, his joy was beyond words. Okay, happy, come again. He used his Qigong again, and this time the strength he summoned had already broken through the previous 9 heavens and reached the 10th heaven. Under the pressure of Captain Marvel, he broke through. However, this mere growth is not enough to make up the gap between him and Captain Marvel. Next, it was a one-sided beating. Just like he beat May before, now Captain Marvel beats him. It's just that he held back May at the time, but now Captain Marvel doesn't mean to hold back. If he can't hold on, there is only one result, and that is death. At the beginning, Carol still had some reservations, but when she saw the exaggerated speed of Zanlu's progress, she knew that a quick decision must be made without delay. Reading www.uakanshu calm, otherwise it is inevitable that the gutter will overturn. Ha, the magnetic field turns, the 15th heaven, come again. Zhonglu looked like a crazy tiger. Every cell in his body was desperately squeezing out more electricity to supply Zhonglu to make a breakthrough. In the past hour or so, he has broken through 5 times, reaching the realm of the 15th heaven, but there is still a long way to go from Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel repelled Zhonglu again, and when he was about to take advantage of the situation to attack, the alien communicator suddenly rang, and Nick's voice came out of it. Carol, stop. New York is about to be destroyed by you. Carol and Zhongliu's fighting power is stronger than May's. It turned out that the island where May stood was already shattered. The tsunami caused by the aftermath of the battle was even more overwhelming, even as high as 100 meters. Nick is going crazy now. He originally thought that if Captain Marvel was dispatched, Zhonglu could be easily solved, and after he was suppressed and contained, he would find a way to use it for himself. But who would have thought that the two would fight evenly? As for such a bad result, it would be better not to call her back and let May be beaten to death. He had no choice but to turn out another hole card, and through an alien friend, he contacted Captain Marvel's alien communicator to prevent them from continuing to destroy New York. Even if they can be stopped now, the dead will not be resurrected, and the losses caused cannot be made up. Captain Marvel looked down, couldn't help being frightened and angry, and planned to go down to stop this wave of tsunami first, but Zhonglu was fighting to the top. How could he allow her to withdraw and leave? Go away. I want to save people first. What responded to her was Zhonglu's manic laughter. Ha, the magnetic field turns, the 15th heaven, the ultimate endless palm. Captain Marvel couldn't get rid of him, so he had to punch him hard and blow him away, but the force of the blow created more and higher waves. I don't have time to fight you now, get out. It's useless, Carol, he can't understand English. Nick sighed through the communicator. You have to lure him to outer space, otherwise your battle will definitely have a major impact on the surface of the Earth. Quote. The interstellar translator I use, he can understand me. Captain Marvel once again punched flying Zhonglu, rose up, and flew straight to outer space. Zhonglu chased after him for a while, then stopped, because he was still unable to move in outer space. As a result, after Captain Marvel flew into space, he looked back and saw Zhonglu yelling at her in the atmosphere, but he just couldn't get up. Nick, he doesn't seem to be able to fly into outer space. Great, then this is his weakness. Nick was excited and finally found the weakness of this alien. Carol, you capture him into outer space, subdue him, and bring him back alive. He is very valuable. Don't be afraid of aliens being strong. As long as they have weaknesses, there are ways to restrain them. For example, build a special prison for him in outer space, hold him in custody, and lock him up for a few years. After his temper has calmed down, he will naturally be able to talk. 17 or 18 plans came up in Nick's mind instantly. After Captain Marvel received Nick's order, his body sank immediately, and Shang Zhonglu fell down. Zhonglu was feeling annoyed that his opponent had run away, and when he saw her fly back, he mustered up his strength again. The magnetic field rotates, the 15th heaven, the ultimate Shen Lei hand. The two palms clashed, and with a click, Zhonglu's arm split apart again. He only felt a tightness in his chest, and blood gushed out again. But before he could breathe again, Captain Marvel came behind him. His left arm was stuck under his neck, his right hand and left hand formed a cross, locked him, pulled up on the spot, and flew directly into the sky. Zhongluyun used his body protection, trying to bounce Captain Marvel away, but Captain Marvel was already very familiar with his power, and he had already prepared for it, clasped his hands tightly, and didn't give him the slightest chance. As the altitude increased, the oxygen became thinner. Zhonglu inhaled less and less oxygen into his lungs, especially when he kept bombarding Captain Marvel's ribs with heavy palms. He consumed more oxygen. Soon, his oxygen supply was insufficient, and the force of his palm became weaker and weaker. When Captain Marvel took him to outer space, he was already in a dying state. Her breathing stopped, her heartbeat gradually became inaudible, and the experience of her life flashed like a lantern in her mind. Now that I am going to die, what do I think when I am dying? What is it? What is it? What is it? A thought suddenly flashed in the brain that was almost inactive, and then, like the beam of light that opened up the world, it connected all the cells in the brain. Of course, become stronger. Zhan Lu, who was dying, suddenly broke out in despair like a trapped beast. The magnetic field turns, 20 heavens. Captain Marvel saw that he was about to die, and was planning to subdue him to see Nick, but was caught off guard by his sudden outburst, and he got out of trouble. Once Zhan Lu got out of trouble, he immediately fell to the earth without hesitation. It is true that the 20-fold sky can move freely in outer space without protection, but it is the same as flying in the 9-fold sky, which consumes too much energy. Therefore, Zhan Lu must return to the ground and fight the ground battle with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel cursed secretly, and followed closely behind. After entering the 20th heaven, Zhan Lu's speed has been greatly improved. Although it is not as good as Captain Marvel, but with preparation, it is not so easy for her to control it easily. Captain Marvel wanted to catch him again, and wanted to fight me close many times, but Zhan Lu had learned his lesson. How could he let her succeed so easily? Moreover, Zhan Lu felt that there was a strange induction in the pineal gland between his eyebrows. Every time an electric current flowed through there, he would hallucinate himself, but now it was the time of the battle, so he really didn't have time to investigate it carefully. He didn't know that the aftermath of his previous battle with Captain Marvel had shocked May to death, and the system's mission had been completed. The two rolled and tumbled, and fell into the atmosphere in the midst of non-stop fighting. Originally, Zhan Lu wanted to hone himself by fighting to the death with Captain Marvel, but now Captain Marvel's way of fighting does not fight him head-on at all, which makes him extremely annoyed. He decided to find a way to force Captain Marvel to fight him head-on. And this method is also easy to find. It was the who asked her to come here, so as long as she kills by herself, Captain Marvel will definitely stop it. At that time, it is impossible for her to fight in a roundabout way. After Zhan Lu fell to the ground, he threw off Captain Marvel and flew towards New York at full speed. Captain Marvel sped up to intercept several times, but she simply couldn't slow Zhan Lu's speed, let alone stop it, while she avoided confronting Hong head-on. Soon, Zhan Lu saw New York City submerged in water again. On the surface of the water, a large number of rescuers quickly shuttled on the speedboat, sent the salvaged people to a higher floor to settle, and then returned to search for survivors on the water. And those who did not surface, there is no doubt that they will never surface again. Zhan Lu ignored these people and flew directly close to the surface of the water at supersonic speed. Wherever he passed, a long chasm was plowed in the water surface, and the waves caused all the nearby ships to capsize. If Captain Marvel followed him, there would definitely be waves of the same size, and when the two waves were superimposed, it would be a bigger wave, and more people would die by then. So Captain Marvel had to stop. Although she knew very well that if Zhan Lu was not stopped now, more people would die in the future. But as a superhero, she can't stand by and watch the people in front of her die, let alone let people die because of herself. After throwing off Captain Marvel, Zhan Lu looked for an opportunity to heal himself first. After the magnetic field rotates to the 9th heaven, it can absorb the life force of plants to heal injuries, and it can absorb and change animal blood to replenish blood for oneself. Although he still looks miserable, he has adjusted his state a lot. He shuttled around the city, and soon, he found his target. Nick was in the office of S.H.I.E.L.D., defenseless against Zhan Lu, who suddenly appeared in front of him. "Very well, I found you, call that woman over and fight me head-on." Zhan Lu's current image is very miserable, with blood all over his body and many fractures on his body. No one would suspect that he died suddenly on the spot. "Mr. Zhan, you need a doctor now. As long as you are willing to cooperate, I promise to give you the best medical assistance." "No, I don't need a doctor, I need to fight. Let her come here, immediately." Zhan Lu yelled at Nick with fierce eyes. Combat comprehension doesn't happen every time, and now he is in good condition and needs fierce battles to upgrade. Especially the area of the pineal gland on his forehead, he had a strange feeling, as if something was being conceived. He has already seen the system's prompt, but he can feel that what the system gives is only a basic version, and now he needs to fight to make this thing grow. Okay, I'll let her come over right away." Nick was afraid that he would go crazy, so he hurriedly comforted him with good words, contacted Captain Marvel in front of him, and called her over. As soon as the phone was hung up, Captain Marvel arrived in an instant, stood in front of Zhan Lu, and blocked Nick behind. I want to fight with you, in the Earth's atmosphere, head to head, just like the way we fought before. Before Captain Marvel agreed, Nick refused first. This won't work, Mr. Zahn, your fighting style will cause devastating damage to the surface, and many people will die. With Carol standing in front of him, Nick's confidence returned. He shook his head and rejected Zhang Lu's request. Actually, you don't need to fight at all. Today's incident is completely a misunderstanding. Why don't we stop here? Chapter 11. That's the end. Hand over May first, let me clean up the house first. Then talk about the things so far. I said it, May will definitely die today, I said it. Zhang Lu was so crazy that he didn't want to stop the war at all. Whether it's because of the gate rules, because of the need to upgrade the magnetic field rotation, or because of the dignity of the Valkyrie, it's impossible for him to stop now. I also said that May will definitely not die today, I said it. Captain Marvel took a step forward and stared at him closely. The two stood facing each other, their fighting spirit soaring. None of the three knew that May was actually dead. Nick hid behind Captain Marvel, interjected. This is impossible, Mr. Zahn, you have also seen that the Earth is not a place where you can do whatever you want. Carol is just one of the superheroes on Earth, if you continue to fight, you will only die. I can promise you that all those who have learned the ultimate infinite Qigong will go to you to learn from them, and will not spread it to the outside world. But May, I can't give it to you. And, as long as you are willing to cooperate, I can intercede with the Security Council and pardon you for the crimes you have committed. Nick saw that Zhang Lu couldn't beat Captain Marvel, and put on a magnanimous look, playing hard and soft, trying to subdue him. Haha, just kidding, I'm the god of war. In the world of martial gods, the strong are respected. Zhang Lu has lived in the world of martial gods for more than 10 years, and Sangwon has already become the shape of martial gods. He takes it for granted that martial gods should be born to be the ruler of the world. Mouth, I voluntarily gave up ruling the world. This is already the greatest gift to you, but you are not satisfied, and you still have to push forward, trying to judge me. Every martial fight is an extreme madman, magnetic field maniac, and Zhang Lu is no exception. Woman, either you kill me, or I kill everyone in this city. Choose one, you have no other choice. Nick's face was gloomy, and he moved to kill. He switched to English and said, "This is a lunatic, Carol. If you have the chance, kill him. As long as you bring his head back, I will naturally have a way to dig out his secrets." Captain Marvel cooperatively turned off the interstellar translator. Nick, the battle will cause many chain reactions, and more people will die by then. I know, but now he insists on fighting, and we can't stop him. The way he fights is electric current and magnetic field. Is there anything in S.H.I.E.L.D. that can limit his technology? I have developed some special insulation equipment for Magneto, which has a great restraint effect on electricity and magnetism, but these equipment require special items to supply energy, and it takes time to prepare. Also, I can't guarantee that this thing will work against him. The military's previous fighters against Magneto were completely useless. In the current situation, do you have any choice? Carol gave Nick a blank look. Okay, I need an hour. If you can finish him within an hour, that's fine. If not, you can take him to base number 7 in an hour, and we will set up an ambush there. Okay, Captain Marvel turned on the interstellar translator again, and said to Zhang Lu. I agree, the location is chosen in the Sahara Desert, where there is no one inhabited, and the damage caused by our battle will be minimized. After speaking, she got up and flew away. Zhang Lu didn't care about these things, he just got up and chased after him. Nick looked at Feiyuan Zhan 6 and picked up the phone. Coulson, activate the degaussing plan and send the 084 item to base No. 7. The equipment must be debugged within an hour. Formed about 2.5 million years ago, the Sahara Desert is the largest sandy desert in the world. It is located in northern Africa and has very harsh climatic conditions, making it one of the most inhospitable places on Earth for living things. Its total area roughly accommodates the entire continental United States. But at this moment, the Sahara Desert has changed from being unsuitable for living things to being unsuitable for living things. The originally endless sand sea is now full of traces of colored glaze. There are no human beings living here, so Captain Marvel let go of his hands and feet, trying to kill the lunatic in front of him here. Collisions exceeding the level of hydrogen bombs occur more than 10 times per minute. Driven by the shock wave, the sand waves soared into the sky, melted and condensed under the high temperature, forming a spire-like spectacle. Huge pits like abysses, towering spears, and strange shapes are all products of the aftermath of the battle. The poisonous insects living in the surrounding deserts felt this doomsday scene. They got out of the sand one after another, and fled in all directions like desperately. Looking down from a high altitude through satellites, one can see a strange scene. Those animals like sand scorpions and poisonous snakes, which are like natural enemies, all gather together and flee frantically to the edge of the desert. Those who were lucky enough to get far away escaped, but many more, without even a chance to get out of the sand, were shaken to death under the endless sand sea by the aftermath. But what is even more unlucky is the surrounding countries. In this area, the continental plate is usually very stable, and natural disasters such as earthquakes rarely occur. But today, the energy leakage caused by the battle between the two spread to the surrounding area through the earth, and the direct result was that the surrounding African countries continued to experience earthquakes. Originally, the quality of buildings in these small countries was not strong enough for daily life, but in the face of this level of natural disasters, they had no resistance at all, and they collapsed one after another, causing casualties 100 times that of New York. Captain Marvel beat Zhang Lu with all his strength for an hour, and every time he felt that he was about to be beaten to death, but he was able to crawl out again, mustering stronger strength to continue fighting against himself. From the looks of it, with his own strength alone, he might not be able to kill this lunatic. Captain Marvel sighed secretly, took off and rushed to base No. 7. Zhang Lu's physical condition is extremely poor, but his spirit is getting stronger and stronger, his fighting spirit is high, and he has many insights, and his understanding of the rotation of the magnetic field is getting deeper and deeper. And the pineal gland in front of his forehead also bulged slightly, as if some kind of organ was being conceived inside. When the fight was exciting, Captain Marvel ran away again. Zhang Lu got angry, and chased after him. Captain Marvel didn't fly as fast this time, and it was clear to lure him somewhere, but whatever, Valkyrie was up to any tricks. The rapid increase in strength made Zhang Lu's self-confidence skyrocket. Soon, Captain Marvel lands in a base-like location. Zhang Lu didn't talk nonsense, he directly raised his palm in the air, and with a heavy strike, he went straight to Captain Marvel and smashed down the door. Originally, he mustered up his strength, but the moment he entered the base area, before he got close to Captain Marvel, he felt a strange force suddenly fall on him, and his high-speed electric current jumped violently and he lost control. Hey! Zhang Lu was startled, and hurriedly urged Qigong to confine the current, but Captain Marvel quickly approached him and punched him hard. This punch, stuck at the moment when his magnetic field rotation power stagnated, directly blasted his ultimate stellar energy and landed heavily on him. Zhang Lu was like a baseball being hit, it was sent flying with a boom. PFF'd, he spewed blood wildly, and hurriedly regained his breath, but Captain Marvel had already reached his head, his slender and strong long legs were raised high, and they slammed down heavily like a battle axe. In a hurry, he had no choice but to block his chest with his hands, but he couldn't stop him at all. His heavy leg hit his hands first, and then pushed his hands to hit his chest hard. There was a series of cracking sounds, and the arms and ribs that had been fractured in many places were finally broken. Zhang Lu fell to the base below at a faster speed than he flew up. The speed was faster than the sound, and a sonic boom cloud was directly produced in the sky. His body hit the base heavily, and the moment he landed, he tried his best to lift up the ultimate whirlwind breaker, directing huge energy into the ground. With a loud bang, the entire base collapsed. A huge pit with a radius of 100 meters and a depth of 100 feet appeared on the ground out of thin air. All the agents in the base were dead the moment Zhang Lu landed. Most of the machinery and equipment that had been debugged and could be used for a long time also failed under the impact of this energy. The energy field that originally interfered with the current promotion and the magnetic field rotation disappeared. Captain Marvel frowned, frightened and angry. She is also a battle-tested fighter, and this fall should not have such serious consequences. It's just that she didn't understand the effects of various Qigong stunts in the martial god world, and she couldn't even guess that the attack on the base came from her attack on Zhang Lu. Although the cost was very heavy, the results were also excellent. Zhonglu's arms drooped, their shapes were distorted, and they were obviously broken. Without careful treatment and long-term recovery, it was impossible to continue fighting. Meanwhile, his steel-like body shriveled everywhere and became strangely shaped. It was obvious that there were a lot of fractures. Countless traumas, the wounds are bleeding out. In Captain Marvel's induction, this guy's vitality became weaker and weaker, and he was finally dying. After that, even if you don't kill him, he won't live long. But as a superhero, of course she has to talk about it. You surrender now, I can guarantee that the judge will give you a fair trial. Hee hee, ha. Almost half of Zhonglu's bones were broken, and it was difficult for him to stand up, but his madness not only did not decrease, but became a little heavier. He was half-arched, his arms were hanging down limply, and he was laughing wildly. Why, seeing that my arm is crippled, do you think I can't continue fighting? What do you think a Valkyrie is? Is it just a lunatic with a high enough force value? Wrong. Valkyrie is a spirit that develops the evolution of the human body to the limit. War God is a kind of will, it is the will to become the strongest, not to spare your life, and to die without stopping. Want me to surrender? Okay, come and defeat me. The magnetic field rotates, the 25th heaven. The ultimate emperor's leg. After Zhongfu was severely injured, his arms were crippled, and he was dying from serious injuries, he finally broke through again and reached the 25th level of magnetic field rotation. This is a watershed, only the Valkyrie who has crossed this hurdle is qualified to be called a strong one. Zhonglu's attitude was very obvious, and Captain Marvel was also angry. Stubborn. The two slammed together again. This time the energy impact was much greater than before, and even Captain Marvel felt a little strenuous. How is it possible? How did your strength grow so fast? Every time the rotation of the magnetic field increases by one layer, the power increase is a qualitative change. When Captain Marvel and Zhonglu first started fighting, he only had the 9th heaven, but as the battle progressed, he is now the 25th heaven. This increase in strength is not several times, but dozens or hundreds of times. Especially every 25th heaven is a qualitative change. The huge shock wave leveled everything within a few miles, leaving only a huge sinkhole in place. It was also because of the complete destruction that a strange object appeared in front of the two of them. It was a box-shaped object not much bigger than a palm, which looked like a Rubik's Cube, floating above the Tianqing, emitting strange energy. This is the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Captain Marvel immediately knew what Nick meant when he said that special items were needed to provide energy. Captain Marvel's power comes from the Rubik's Cube in the universe. Now that he sees the Rubik's Cube, of course he must take it back. Otherwise, if it falls into the hands of the lunatic on the opposite side, and he has the same power as himself, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold him down, and it will be inevitable that people will die. Zhonglu also recognized the space gem, no wonder his power was affected just now. The magnetic field rotates power, not using a simple magnetic field, but its own life magnetic field, similar to the biological magnetic field of Superman in DC. Ordinary equipment to restrain the magnetic field is ineffective for him. Originally, he didn't care about strange things like space gems, but the undeveloped sky eye in the pineal gland between his foreheads had an urgent need for space gems. This feeling went straight to the soul, and there was absolutely no mistake. The things in this world belong to the virtuous. Now that I have seen it, then this space gem is mine. The two rushed towards the cosmic Rubik's Cube almost at the same time, and attacked each other almost at the same time, trying to prevent the other party from taking the Rubik's Cube. But under the entanglement of the two people's strength, the cosmic Rubik's Cube was drawn in, and it happened to land between the fists and legs of the two. In just a split second, the outer skin of the Rubik's Cube wrapped around the space gem shattered, and an oval gem appeared on the spot. After that, the fists and legs of the two hit the gem at the same time. The next moment, a violent explosion happened. In Zhonglu's mind, a dangerous alarm sounded suddenly, almost subconsciously, he instinctively fled to the sky at full speed. Not only him, but Captain Marvel did the same thing almost at the same time. Fleeing from danger is the instinct of life. After a few breaths, the two arrived in outer space, looking back in shock. I saw a spot of light slowly spreading and getting bigger, and getting faster and faster, and it spread to the entire planet in a few minutes. Under the eyes of the two, the earth shattered. What would a shattered planet look like? Except for astronomers, ordinary people may only see it in movies. But today, Zhonglu and Captain Marvel watched a scene in space. A crack appeared on the planet first, and then more and more cracks appeared on the planet, becoming denser and denser, like a lampshade with a hollow pattern, and the light leaked out from the gap in the pattern. After that, some patterns merged into a large gap, and a large number of lights poured out from here, and finally flooded the entire lampshade. The two watched silently. The planet slowly cracked, and a large amount of magma spewed out from the center of the Earth, like a fountain, and also like fireworks. Then the magma condensed rapidly, and the beautiful golden red color faded, becoming gray, cold and dead. Captain Marvel is going crazy. This is her hometown, the place she tried her best to protect, but in the end it was destroyed because of her battle. Her eyeballs were red, and she was about to pounce on her to kill her. Both of them are in extremely bad condition now. Zhonglu's right leg is gone, and Carol's right arm is also gone. When their attacks touched the jewel, their limbs disappeared instantly. It's just that it disappeared too quickly, and the sense of life crisis was too strong. Under the instinctive trend, the two of them just focused on running for their lives and didn't notice the injury at all. After arriving in space, they all ignored the injury because the Earth's fragmentation was too shocking. Relatively speaking, Zhonglu's injury is far more serious than that of Captain Marvel, but at the same time, he has a stronger tolerance for injuries. If the two are uninjured, it must be Captain Marvel who wins. But in the case of a life-and-death battle, it is still unknown whether Captain Marvel will kill Zhonglu before his injuries can no longer hold, or Zhonglu will explode and fight back again. The Earth is gone, and the two of them no longer have any scruples, and they are bound to live and die separately. But at this moment, in the void, a circle of light shining with golden sparks suddenly appeared, and a bald woman wearing a yellow monk's robe came out of it. Don't fight, both of you, let me save the Earth first. Can you save the Earth? Carol was surprised. Well, it's quite difficult, but it's not impossible. The nun smiled wryly. Now Captain Marvel no longer cared about Zhonglu, and urged anxiously. Then save it quickly. Even if the Earth is saved in a while, all the people on it will die. Don't worry, I am going back in time to save the Earth, and all the dead can be resurrected. But if I save the Earth with my front foot, and you smash it with your back foot, then there is no point in saving it. It's all this, he is a lunatic, not only killing the Earth, but also smashing the Earth. Hey, what a backlash. Zhonglu thought to himself that he was a great master of a generation, and he didn't bother to imitate shrews in cursing the streets. Of course he had to be reasonable. He sneered. You sent people to our sect to learn martial arts secretly, and even violated the sect's rules to reveal the kung fu in private. Why is it wrong for me to clean up the sect? You are trying to cover up the abandoned disciples of our faction and prevent me from cleaning up the sect. Naturally, those deaths and injuries should be counted on your heads. Don't throw the blame on me. It is agreed that we will fight to the death, but you actually set a trap secretly. I will break the trap and get some spoils. What's wrong? As for the destruction of the Earth, it was you who prevented me from collecting the spoils. During the battle, I couldn't do enough to destroy it unintentionally. You and I are each responsible. Break it down. You get 8 points, and I get 2 points. Captain Marvel was called back by Nick, and hurried to the battlefield to rescue May. She had no idea how the battle happened. But according to the thinking logic of superheroes, killing is wrong, and crime is wrong. You want to kill May, I saw it with my own eyes, what else can I say? Because of your reckless actions, New York was flooded and how many people were homeless? What should we do? You regard human life as nothing. How many people have been killed by flying at supersonic speed and low altitude in New York? How is this crime counted? The cosmic Rubik's Cube is an item belonging to S.H.I.E.L.D. You intended to kill it, but I stopped it. Only then did the accident happen. You are the culprit. Zhonglu carefully comprehended the rapidly rising martial arts realm, and at the same time tried his best to suppress the injuries in his body, so he was happy to have a chat with her for a while. Especially since Ji Yuyi has appeared, he can't afford to offend Ji Yuyi now, it's better to give her face. Before the official apprenticeship, I made it very clear that we must abide by the rules of the sect. I didn't ask May to become a master. Since she joined our sect, she should abide by the rules of our sect. If she dares to violate the sect rules, it is only natural for me to kill her. Quote, everything has a cause and an effect. It is the cause that you sent people to sneak into my faction to steal the exercises, and everything after that is the effect. When it comes to guilt, it should be the first cause of the crime. All casualties should be borne by your shield. Nonsense. May is an agent of SHIELD, and her life is protected by the federal government. If you want to kill her, it is a violation of federal law. Joke. Could it be a mere federal law? Can it be higher than the sect's rules? The two have different views, they insist on their own opinions, and they quarrel, and no one can convince the other. Ji Yuyi next to him couldn't take it anymore, he sighed and said. Although I can turn back time, but if the time is too long, my body will not be able to bear it. You should reach an agreement as soon as possible. Forget it, I don't want the earth to disappear like this, so I'll give in first. Zhonglu turned his head to look at Ji Yuyi. You can restore the earth, this seat will only abolish May alone, and then just take that cosmic Rubik's Cube. What? Impossible. Captain Marvel blew up. I don't need to kill you, but May can't die. The cosmic Rubik's Cube is of great importance. It is the property of SHIELD and cannot be given to you. The two couldn't agree, and immediately quarreled again, and the anger became more and more serious, and there were signs of fighting again. Ji Yuyi sighed, and countless lights and shadows flickered in her eyes. After a while, she stopped and interrupted the two of them again. Well, let me make a suggestion, see if you can accept it, how about it? The two stopped arguing and turned their heads to look over. I'll turn back the time to before May's apprenticeship, so that May is not your apprentice, and she doesn't know the practice of your sect. After the nun finished speaking, she turned her head to look at Captain Marvel. You tell the director of SHIELD everything that happened today, and warn him not to try to steal the martial arts of Ultimate Infinity Sect. How? The two thought for a while, and found that both parties could accept this suggestion, so they nodded in agreement. Next is the issue of the ownership of the Rubik's Cube. I know you need the cosmic Rubik's Cube to promote the evolution of your Sky Eye. I have a substitute here. What do you think? As she spoke, she took out a necklace-shaped artifact from nowhere. The pendant under the necklace was a hollow ball shaped like an eye, and there seemed to be something inside. As soon as the magic weapon was taken out, Zhonglu immediately felt a strong sense of desire coming from his pineal gland, similar to when he saw the cosmic Rubik's Cube before. This is the Eye of Agamotto, which contains the Time Gem. Like the Space Gem that destroyed the Earth before, it is one of the 6 infinite gems in the universe. Even if you get the Space Gem, you may not be able to use it, but I will help you with the Time Gem, and I can help you complete the birth of the Sky Eye today. Of course Zhonglu knew what Ji Yuyi was holding, especially Ji Yuyi even knew it through the eyes of the sky, and he must have seen it by observing the future. Immediately, Zhonglu couldn't help but be more polite, put his 2 disused arms together weakly, bowed and saluted, and asked earnestly. This master, dare to ask what is the Eye of the Sky? The Eye of the Sky is the name I saw you call it in the future in the long river of time. It is an auxiliary organ that you have the opportunity to conceive after you reach a certain level of magnetic field rotation. Its function is closely related to your mind, soul, destiny, etc., and will also be affected by the energy absorbed during gestation. You can use the energy of the Space Gem to make it evolve, and you can also use the energy of the Time Stone to make it evolve. Of course, the energy of different gemstones will inevitably affect the function of the Sky Eye. So if I use the energy of the Time Gem to conceive the Eye of the Sky, can it make me go back in time like you? Unfortunately, I can't. In addition to using the Time Stone, I also use the power of magic to go back in time. However, it allows you to predict the future to a certain extent, although it may not be controllable. What special effect does the Eye of the Sky bred with the energy of the Space Gem have? Can it allow me to travel freely between different worlds? Unfortunately, it can't. It can only let you see through space locks, magic barriers, immunity to illusions, and the like. It sounds like the effect of the Space Eye is more practical. Don't you want to predict the future? The nun was surprised. In her opinion, there is nothing more fascinating than time. If the future can't be changed, what's the use of seeing it in advance? If the future can be changed, what I see may not be true. Predicting the future is the most useless ability. I prefer space eyes. Of course, mainly because I read the comics and movies. Can't you control the space gem to help me conceive it? I can return it to them after I use it up. Wow, your choice really surprised me. You are not greedy for the time stone, maybe you are the best time stone holder. The nun turned to look at Captain Marvel. What's your opinion? Captain Marvel looked surprised. She originally didn't want Zanlu to gain the power of the cosmic Rubik's Cube, but this nun who appeared out of nowhere actually knew what kind of space gem the gem inside the cosmic Rubik's Cube was. She has only heard of this name, but she has no idea that it is hidden in the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Moreover, this nun took out a time gem, which is at the same level as the space gem. If she objects to letting Zanlu obtain the power of the space gem, then what he will get in the end will be the power of the time gem. Powerful. That being the case, why should she be a villain in vain? I have no opinion. The nun smiled with satisfaction. Now that everyone has reached an agreement, I'm going to start. She held the eye of Agamotto in her hand, and swiped her fingers counterclockwise in a circle. Something that shocked Zanlu and Captain Marvel happened. The fragments of the Earth that had been shattered into cosmic garbage, just like a movie reversed, have condensed together again. And with their sharp eyes, they can clearly see. The Sahara Desert, which was originally turned into Lulachang because of the battle between the two, has turned back into a vast sea. In New York, which was originally flooded, the flood receded and the collapsed tall buildings stood up again. All those who had died were resurrected. Wow, the two were shocked by this cosmic spectacle, their hearts pounding. Although Zanlu knew that Ji Yuyi could reverse time, he didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. What a mighty power this is. I'm afraid this can only be achieved by turning the magnetic field to the limit. Martial gods have always been strong, and Zanlu is no exception, so his attitude is naturally more polite. I haven't asked yet, what is the master's name? Carol also politely asked for his name. My name is Ji Yuyi, and I am the guardian of the earth. People call me the Supreme Mage. Ah, so you are the Supreme Mage. Captain Marvel exclaimed. Captain Marvel used to be the #1 thug of the Kree people back then. As one of the 3 great empires in the universe, the intelligence system of the Kree Empire was quite developed, and of course there was no defense against the #1 thug at the time. Later, after she broke away from the Kree Empire, she has been hanging out in the universe, and has long admired the name of the Supreme Mage. Master Ji Yuyi, I would like to ask, what are the 6 infinite gems? I have only heard of it, but I don't understand it. Ji Yuyi smiled, stretched out his hand and drew a circle of light shining with golden red sparks, and said, let's go back to Earth and sit down and talk slowly. She got in first, followed by Zanlu and Captain Marvel, and then the circle of light disappeared out of thin air, and the ancient silence was restored in the cosmic space. At the other end of the aperture is a quaint quiet room, surrounded by many strange utensils and some quaint books. Let me deal with your injuries first. She waved her hand, and the two of them felt a force falling on themselves, and then Captain Marvel found that his injury was healed, and he had completely returned to before the Earth exploded. Zanlu's injuries also recovered, but he frowned. Master, why did my realm drop again? You just need to go back to the time before I broke my leg, and you don't have to worry about other injuries. Ji Yuyi smiled and said, I just adjusted the time of your body, but it didn't affect your memory. You just need to practice again to find your own strength. Zanlu made a little induction and found that he hadn't lost the slightest sense of the rotation of the magnetic field, so he was relieved. So that's the case, I was rude, thank you master. You're welcome. Ji Yuyi smiled, stretched out his hand to respect the guests, please sit down. The 3 found a futon and sat down. Ji Yuyi waved his hand one by one, and a teacup filled with black tea appeared out of nowhere in front of each of them. Oh, it's so convenient. Captain Marvel was very envious of the Supreme Mage's little life magic. Magic can do many things that ordinary people can't do, but now it's not the era of the magic universe. The mainstream of the universe now is technology. Ji Yuyi didn't think so. With the development of technology, maybe similar things in the future, you only need to snap your fingers, and the smart housekeeper can do it for you. You are too humble. In fact, none of the technology of the 3 major empires in the universe can do this. Captain Marvel shook his head with a smile, not believing her words. The fact that the 3 empires of the universe can't do it doesn't mean that the Earth can't do it. Ji Yuyi laughed mysteriously. The Earth is special. Ji Yuyi did not continue to explain too much about the special problems of the Earth, but began to explain the secret of the infinite gem to the two of them. Infinity gems are refined from the essence of 6 singularities that contained infinite energy before the Big Bang, and control the 6 basic attributes of space, time, reality, power, mind, and soul. The cosmic Rubik's Cube obtained by SHIELD is the box containing the space gems. Using space gems, you can instantly move yourself or all objects to any space at will, and you can also manipulate the space according to your own will, such as separating, cutting, twisting or rearranging or even creating new spaces. At the same time, the space stone itself contains endless energy, or in other words, the 6 infinite stones all contain endless energy. But not everyone is qualified to touch the infinity stones. Once you touch them rashly, if you are lucky, you will be wiped out. If you are unlucky, the planet will be destroyed. Just like before, in the ancient words, there is a warning implied. I understand, Mage, I will warn Nick not to use it casually, it is best to seal it permanently. Ji Yuyi was noncommittal, took a sip of tea, and continued to introduce. And the Eye of Agamotto, which has been handed down from the lineage of the Supreme Mage, is the container of the Time Gem. The Time Gem allows the user to reach any point in time, whether it is the long past or the distant future, and use this power to watch or experience any era. Therefore, if the user has a lot of knowledge, he can do more things, even manipulate time and cause and effect. As for the other 4 infinite gems, I don't know where they are, but there is no doubt that they are all universe-level treasures. And, if the 6 infinite gems are combined into one, the holder can do anything. Therefore, the merger of 6 infinite gems is forbidden in the universe. Anyone who dares to collect infinite gems will inevitably be attacked by all forces. Zhonglu took a deep look at Ji Yuyi. Did you do it on purpose? Do anything, what a beautiful word. It is very difficult for Zhonglu to break through the limit of the magnetic field turning 50 heavens with the ultimate infinite Qigong, and the system talks about the opportunity to break through, so it is hard to say whether it will really break through. But if the 6 infinity stones are one, maybe you can really do what you dream of. But I am still too weak now, at least I have to reach the limit of the ultimate limitless Qigong before I am qualified to consider this kind of thing. Zhonglu is fanatic, but he is not crazy, he is very rational, he knows when to be tough and when to be cowardly. If it wasn't Captain Marvel who came to trouble him first, but the Supreme Mage, I'm afraid he would have known the current affairs long ago. Fighting against the strong is the spirit of Valkyrie, and fighting against the unattainable is mental illness. After Ji Yuyi finished explaining, he stretched out his hand and drew a small circle, and then the cosmic Rubik's Cube fell out of the circle. She reached out to catch it, and asked Zhonglu, "Are you ready for the evolution of the Sky Eye?" Zhonglu was stunned, and hurriedly collected his spirit and made preparations. "Come on, Master." Ji Yuyi lightly shook the cosmic Rubik's Cube towards Zhonglu, and a light blue energy shot out from the cosmic Rubik's Cube, directly into the sky eyes between Zhonglu's foreheads. Tianyan frantically absorbed this energy as if he had been hungry and thirsty for a long time. Obviously, Ji Yuyi controlled the output of energy, so that this energy just fit the absorption limit of Tianyan, no more, no less. With the infusion of energy, the eyes of the sky gradually changed from dry to full, from dry to agile. There was great joy in Zhonglu's heart, which came from the synesthesia of the heavenly eye. The space eye is about to be born. After about 10 minutes, Ji Yuyi stopped and returned the cosmic Rubik's Cube to its original position. Back and forth, they ignored the shield alarm and didn't even make a sound. And the sky eye in the space between Zhonglu's forehead has been opened, and a light blue light is shining in a erect eye pupil. He opened his sky eyes and looked around. In the sky eyes, there was an ordinary quiet room, but there were layers upon layers of unknowingly many spaces interlaced here. In other people's homes, it is a taboo to look around casually. He understands these oriental taboos, so he hastily looked away, stood up and saluted again. "Thank you, Supreme Master, for your help. If you need it in the future, just send someone to the martial arts hall to send a message." Zhanmu is obliged. Ji Yuyi was not polite to him, and nodded to accept his kindness. "If there is a need, I will not be polite. In addition, the address of the New York Temple is at 177A Bleecker Street, Manhattan, New York City. If you need to find me, you can go there and send me a message. By the way, I have a piece of advice. Try to restrain your killing intent. In the endless future, not all endings are good. Zhang Lu Yilin, knowing that she must have seen some possibility, immediately handed over her hands again to thank her. Ji Yuyi stood up. Now that all the problems have been solved, I won't keep you as guests, I'll send you back. The two got up to say goodbye to Ji Yuyi, and Ji Yuyi drew 2 more circles to invite 2 people in. After Zhan Lu stepped through the portal, he returned to his martial arts gym in Chinatown. He walked out of the room, looked at a group of registered disciples who were practicing martial arts in the yard, and everyone looked at the slightly unfamiliar master. All of them were silent, not knowing what to say. What's wrong, master? You. A disciple boldly pointed to the sky eye on his forehead and gestured. Oh, you know, as a teacher is from another world, it's not normal to have an extra eye. Quote. Master, are you really an alien? Fortunately, modern people are well informed and receptive, and they quickly return to their original appearance, talking and laughing. However, it is difficult to say how many people really believe that he is an alien and how many people suspect that he is a mutant. After a while, Mei Denjman came to visit his teacher, but was directly rejected by Zhan Lu. Mei returned to S.H.I.E.L.D. in surprise, and went to Nick to hand in the task. Nick, he may have suspected me and rejected my apprenticeship. And the information is wrong. He has a third eye on his forehead, so it is definitely an alien. There is something wrong with this person, it is best to investigate in all aspects. Okay, Mei, let's stop this matter. Nick rejected Mei's request. I have issued an order. From today on, no one in S.H.I.E.L.D. should provoke him. Why, you just said this morning that you would conduct a full investigation on him. I've changed my mind. Nick stared blankly at Mei with his one eye out. Mei has worked in S.H.I.E.L.D. for a long time, so of course she knows what this means. Okay, I see, I won't provoke him. Mei got up and left the office. Nick turned around and saw Carol reappearing in front of him. Thanks to you this time, otherwise I didn't know the result of the matter would be so serious. His 3 views are different from ours, and he is also a martial arts lunatic, but as long as no one takes the initiative to provoke him, he doesn't bother to bully the weak. In addition, I just went to the New York temple to have a look, and I couldn't find the place at all. The house number is empty. Obviously, the Supreme Mage doesn't have a good impression of me, and it's not as good as Zhan Lu. It's not easy for S.H.I.E.L.D. to get help from mages. Nick smiled confidently. Don't worry, as long as I know where the address is, there must be a way to find them. That's good, I'll go first, and you can contact me if you have anything to do. Nick looked at Captain Marvel, who had already flown without a trace. His expression gradually darkened. The formation of the Avengers Alliance is imperative. Ah, Tony Stark woke up again from the nightmare. Hi honey, what's the matter with you? Girl beside him was woken up by him, but she didn't feel impatient, but came over very considerately and comforted him softly. Did you have a nightmare? Tony took a few short breaths, took the mineral water handed over by his bed partner, and drank it all in one gulp. He stretched out his arms to hug the supermodel with protruding back and long legs, smiled to hide his actual emotions, and said jokingly, I dreamed that you 2 big babies were fake, and then I woke up with fright, haha. She was already this big when she was in the 9th grade, how could it be fake? The two flirted for a while, and the woman wanted to write something that was not allowed, but was rejected by Tony. The two hugged each other and lay back on the bed. The woman soon fell asleep, but Tony couldn't fall asleep for a long time. This is not the first day he has had nightmares, he has had them for nearly half a year. The nightmare was vague at first, but has become clearer lately. In the first 10 days and a half months, I only had nightmares once, but now it happens almost every 2 or 3 days. Every time the nightmare is the same, the overwhelming flood sweeps in, turning the whole of New York into a swamp. God, this is New York. Although it is close to the sea, how could there be such a big flood? Besides, who are you? I am Tony Stark, the super rich. No matter how big the flood is, does it have anything to do with me? The first dream only ended here, and he didn't care about it, but as the dream became clearer, when he observed the man through the private satellite. His indifferent expression, the coldness in his eyes that regard human life as worthless, through the super high-definition satellite lens, directly pierced into his heart, making him short of breath and stop his heartbeat. Even now, after waking up from the nightmare for so long, that look still lingers in his mind. The nightmare for many days made Tony's face have a pair of dark circles under his eyes. Regarding this point, Pepper Potts said, "Tony, if you continue to indulge like this, I'm afraid you won't have a chance to celebrate your 40th birthday." Of course Tony wouldn't tell Pepper that he'd been haunted by nightmares, which would be too embarrassing. "Oh, Pepper, I actually have a new idea, and this idea has been tormenting me, and I can't be at ease even when I fall asleep." Tony casually said, "Don't worry, everything will be back to normal after I assemble it in the laboratory." As for this new idea, oh, and Stark never worried about ideas, and if Pepper wanted to see them, he could whip up a dozen at any time, the kind that would shock the world. Pepper sighed. No matter what Tony said was true or false, she couldn't do anything, she could only pray that this big kid would become a little more mature sometime. After fooling Pepper away, Tony began to think of ways to solve this problem. Now that this has happened, let's find a way to fix it. In this world, there is no problem that can stump Stark. First of all, you have to know whether this person is real or a virtual one in your dream. If this person is real, then find him, throw money at him, and then all problems will be solved. If you can't find this person in the real world, it means that this person is a false character, and you are not an otaku, let alone be afraid of a paper man. He picked up his brush and started painting. As an engineer, Tony's drawing skills are very solid, and he quickly drew the appearance of the man in his dream. "Jarvis, let me search for this person around the world. The similarity is 95%. No, the people with more than 90% are listed in descending order of similarity." He originally thought that after the task was submitted, it would take a long time, or tens of thousands of pieces of information would be searched. He was about to grab a cup of coffee to pick himself up when Jarvis had already submitted the search report. "Find candidates with 99% similarity, do you want to check?" "Okay, is it so efficient? 99%, which is almost exactly the same. Is it possible that such a person really exists in the world?" "Check." Tony ignored the coffee and sat back in his seat. Jarvis projected a three-dimensional image of a man in front of him. Zon 6, a Chinese, claims to be from another world, and now in Chinatown, New York City, he is opening the Ultimate Infinity Museum to teach martial arts from other worlds. Outsider. Wait, what's that on his forehead? Ornament. That's the third eye. It's really an outsider. Why haven't you seen any media reports? Many people on the internet think that he is actually a mutant, and that is his mutant organ. Understood. Tony is very clear about the disputes between ordinary people and mutants, especially those politicians at the top, who regard mutants as pests and want to clean them up. How can they make a high-profile publicity? Have I seen him? Tony thought about it carefully for a long time, but he couldn't figure out why he dreamed of him in his dream. He is not a beautiful woman. After cross-comparing the itineraries of the two of you, no intersection was found between the two of you. That's weird. Tony held his chin, pondering carefully. Although I don't know much about psychology, since I dreamed about him, it was still a nightmare, so in theory, I should be afraid of him. For example, he beat me in reality or something. Of course, no one can beat Stark, I'm just giving an example. I understand, sir. You have no trauma and no medical records. Jarvis, in fact, you should learn to be more humorous. I'm studying, sir. Well, maybe I met him sometime on the internet and was intimidated by his appearance. Am I such a timid person? No, sir, judging from the big data comparison, you are braver than most people in the world. A very nice compliment, Jarvis. I'm not flattering you, sir. Haha, telling the truth is the best compliment. Now that he has found the real body of the man in the nightmare, Tony is of course going to deal with him in the way he is best at. Jarvis, let Happy come to see me, I have something to tell him. Moments later, Happy appeared in front of Tony. Happy, go and buy this martial arts gym, the price is whatever you want. No problem, leave it to me, I will get your new toy at the fastest speed and at the cheapest price. Happy didn't ask Tony why he did this at all, because he had done countless similar things, some for a reason, but more for no reason. Maybe it was just Tony's hot-headed shooting. The mind makes the decision. It doesn't matter. Tony has willful power. Who made him so rich? Zanlu has been concentrating on training these days, and he has regained the martial arts realm that was lost because of going back in time. When you have not reached the realm, you want to break through all kinds of difficulties, but once you break through, even if it is only for a short moment, the understanding of the realm will be deeply rooted in your heart, and it will be hard to forget. In particular, the Supreme Master did not rewind his memory. He has a complete understanding of the 25 heavens of the magnetic field. Therefore, it only took a few days this time, and he successfully returned to the state of the day. Moreover, because of Captain Marvel's warning, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not bother him again, allowing him to carry on the apprenticeship smoothly. But unfortunately, perhaps S.H.I.E.L.D. hated what he did, so it didn't send a large number of agents that had been negotiated before to apprentice, which made him lose many high-quality disciples out of thin air. In fact, Nick also died in the Earth explosion, and when Captain Marvel returned, he was in a hurry to save people, not knowing the agreement Nick had reached with Zanlu. After Nick's resurrection, he lost his past memory, and the information Captain Marvel told him did not have anything related to this cooperation. The final result is that Nick only knows that because he sent Mei to steal the exercises, he violated the ultimate Wuliang sect's rules and angered the alien Zanlu. In the end, the two sides fought a battle, and even the Earth was destroyed. But he didn't know that when he wasn't fighting, Zanlu was easy-talking and harmless to humans and animals. He had a good conversation with him and reached an agreement to recruit apprentices in batches. As long as these agents no longer violated the sect's rules, they would naturally be safe and sound. Valkyries are all people with extreme personalities. Zanlu's personality is not a purebred magnetic field maniac. When he is not sick, he is harmless to humans and animals. People don't offend me, I don't offend others. There are generally only two reasons for him to use force. One is that the door rules are broken, the system issued a task, and the other is that it helps him become stronger. Apart from these, everything, big or small, was chores to him. On this day, after Zanlu finished his practice, he was giving lectures to his disciples as a routine, when suddenly there was a roar of a motor outside the door. A Mercedes-Benz SUV stopped in front of the martial arts hall. The door opened, and a fat man with a big belly came out from inside. He lifted up the belt that kept sliding down from his lower abdomen with both hands, looked up at the plaque in the martial arts hall, and immediately his eyes were stung by the words of inner energy. "Oh, shit," he cursed in a low voice, took out his handkerchief, and wiped away the tears overflowing from the corners of his eyes, but his originally arrogant mood somewhat subsided. He put the handkerchief away, went straight into the door, walked around the screen wall, and came to the courtyard. With his hands behind his back, he looked around the courtyard, waiting for someone to come up to greet him. But at this time, all the disciples were listening to Zanlu's lecture seriously, and no one paid him any attention. After a while, he finally couldn't hold back any longer. He covered his mouth with his hands and coughed dryly, but seeing no one came to greet him, he had no choice but to ask. "Excuse me, who is the owner of the martial arts hall?" he asked with his eyes fixed on Zanlu among the crowd. Zanlu's current image is very eye-catching. After all, there are almost no people with 3 eyes in this world. Although there are mutants, the proportion is too small, and they live like rats crossing the street, hiding and rarely appearing in the crowd. And people like Zanlu, who wear an obvious, mutant organ, and wander around the streets, are not rare, but none at all. Zanlu had seen this fat white man a long time ago, but he didn't want to talk to him. Just looking at his body shape, he knew that he was seriously lacking in self-control, and his willpower was not much higher. He didn't have the qualifications to become a martial god. But since the fat man took the initiative to speak up, as the owner of the martial arts gym, he couldn't ignore it. "Anyone who doesn't understand Chinese will not be accepted, let him go." The disciple got up, came to Fatty Bai, and expressed the attitude of the owner of his house with euphemistic words. The fat white man frowned, and said displeased, "Ly, does he know who he is rejecting? My name is Harpy, and I am here on behalf of Mr. Stark. Tony Stark, do you understand? I have to say that the name Tony Stark is really popular in New York, and it can be used as a business card. The apprentice didn't dare to make decisions without authorization, so he had to come back and translate for Zhang Lu. In fact, Zhang Lu can understand English now, but he just doesn't want to speak it. When the rotation of the magnetic field reaches the 10th heaven, one can perceive the thoughts and consciousness of people whose strength is below the 10th heaven. With this ability, most people in this world have no secrets from him. He wanted to learn English, but it was just a passing moment. Even if you don't know English, you can understand the other party's meaning by directly sensing the other party's thoughts. But Zhang Lu seldom uses this ability, because he doesn't care what the other party is thinking at all, he just needs to act according to his own 3 views in everything. What if everyone disagrees? It's very simple, you change your 3 views, follow mine. Or, you are strong enough to be worthy of Zhang Lu's attention and allow your 3 views to exist. Moreover, he also disliked this group of ignorant fools, worried that probing their thoughts would pollute his pure brain. Anyway, it's just some miscellaneous little things, not worth mentioning. After listening to the apprentice's report, he glanced at Happy, and stretched out his hand to beckon him over. Zhang Lu is not interested in Happy, but is very interested in Tony Stark. Tony Stark is a person who has been cursed by knowledge. As a mortal, he is comparable to a god. He is a rare and intelligent character in the Marvel world. There is no problem in ranking in the top 10. If it is said, who can push the ultimate infinite qigong to surpass the magnetic field and rotate 50 heavens through technological means, there is no doubt that Tony Stark is one of them. At the beginning, when the Patriarch Ultimate Monk was studying ultimate infinite qigong, he also used the power of technology. Although the world's technological level at that time was higher than that of Marvel's superficial world, it was not enough to compare with Marvel's black technology. It is also very good to use the power of Tony Stark to solve the problem of the upper limit of the ultimate infinite qigong, at least it is worth a try. Happy walked up to Zhang Lu triumphantly, and said arrogantly, "Hey, Mr. Zahn, congratulations, your martial arts gym has been spotted by Mr. Stark, and you are going to get rich." Zhang Lu answered irrelevantly and said, "Go back and tell Tony Stark that if you want to learn from him, you can come here in person. By the way, he'd better learn Chinese before coming, otherwise I won't accept him." After finishing speaking, he waved his hand, signaling to drive the fat man out. The disciple translated Zhang Lu's words to Happy, then waved his hand to signal Happy to leave. Happy yelled, "Hey, do you know what you're talking about? You turned down the chance to be a millionaire. You'll never get another chance in your life." Just as the disciple was about to translate for Zhang Lu waved his hand, "There's no need to translate, just drive out. From now on, those who don't understand Chinese don't need to pay attention." When teaching these days, Zhang Lu often uses the power of magnetic field rotation to simulate and explain the cultivation of the human body. The disciples in the martial arts hall have seen Zhang Lu's many supernatural powers these days, respect him like a god, and hope that one day they can also develop superpowers. Of course, they will not go against his wishes. So, no matter how much Happy yelled and cursed, it was still useless, and he was thrown out by the crowd. Happy got up from the ground, patted the ashes on his buttocks, pointed at the gate of the martial arts hall and cursed loudly, "Wait. I will send you a lawyer's letter. I will sue you for bankruptcy." He opened the car door angrily, drove away again, and went back to report to Mr. Stark. After Tony Stark originally handed over the task, he didn't care about it. In his heart, he never felt that someone would reject him. The difference was only the amount of money. The current Tony Stark is not the Iron Man of the future, but just a hothouse flower that has not experienced the damage of the storm, a nasty playboy, nothing more. So it was a surprise when Happy reported him that the acquisition had failed. "Happy, didn't you tell him the price and let him open it?" "Tony, I can't talk to him at all. That fool doesn't know English at all, and his disciples are completely responsible for his translation." Happy spread his hands and said helplessly, "He actually thought that you would go to his martial arts gym to learn martial arts from him. What did he say? Let you learn Chinese before going to apprentice, and he will not accept people who can't speak Chinese." After he finished speaking, someone kicked me out. I didn't have a chance to use my negotiating ability at all. If it weren't for seeing how many people they have, I would definitely let that guy taste the power of my fist. "Did you tell him my name?" Of course, I signed up at the beginning, but he didn't take it seriously at all. Ah, maybe I haven't heard your name before. After all, he's a local turtle who just came from a foreign country. He is not a foreign soil turtle, but an alien soil turtle. Didn't you check the information before you went? Aliens. I've heard it mentioned, but I thought it was a lie. Obviously, it might not be a lie. By the way, I haven't seen an alien yet. Happy understood the meaning contained in Tony's words, and said in surprise, "You're joking, aren't you, Tony? I never joke around with guys, not even if you're happy." Okay, but I suggest bringing a few more people. After all, aliens may not obey federal laws. You arrange it. Rich people can do everything quickly. In the afternoon of that day, a long motorcade appeared in Chinatown, and under the envious eyes of the surrounding crowd, they came to the gate of the wagwan. The vehicle came to a complete stop. Happy got out of the car, opened the back door, and Tony got out of the car in handmade casual clothes and sunglasses. A group of bodyguards in black came down from the convoy, surrounded Tony Stark and entered the martial arts hall. The afternoon is free practice time. A group of people are meditating in the martial arts gym. When I saw a group of people coming in, the leader with the mustache is familiar to everyone in New York. The one behind him is the harpy who came in the morning. The person who received harpy earlier. The disciple hurried over to stop him. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, this is a private domain, and foreign guests are not welcome." There was no need for Mr. Stark to speak. Happy immediately came over and pushed the person away, and Tony Stark swaggered straight to the center of the field. He played with the sunglasses in his hand and asked frivolously, "Where is that alien? Have you submitted the information to the Immigration Bureau?" Zhang Lu heard the commotion outside and walked out from the back hall. Looking at their posture, he knew that the visitors were not good. Although he wanted to kill them to the brim, Tony Stark on the opposite side was a treasure, and he couldn't bear to just kill them like this, at least not until his potential was squeezed out. What's more, before, the Supreme Mage warned him to restrain his killing intent. Ji Yuyi protects the earth, not human beings, so what she said should have a meaning. It's better not to take it seriously. As soon as the disciple came over to translate, Zhang Lui waved his hand. Tony Stark and others felt their own gravity seemed to disappear, and they were rolled by a force that appeared out of thin air, and were thrown away. Now your abilities have not yet started, and you can't do this. When you reach the state of electric current promotion in the future, will have to do this kind of work by yourself. It's still the same sentence. Those who don't understand Chinese will be ignored. The spirit of all the disciples was lifted up, and they all bowed and saluted to say yes. Tony and the others were rolled out of the door. This force disappeared as soon as they left the martial arts hall, and they fell directly from midair. Tony was lucky enough to fall on top of Happy, using his chubby belly as a cushion, without injury. "Okay, Happy, I just found out today that it's actually quite reasonable for you not to lose weight." After he stood up, he reached out to help Happy, who was rolling on the ground. "Okay, call an ambulance immediately, and the cost will be paid by the Stark Group." Zhang Lu acted with discretion. This group of people just fell down. They were all bodyguards, and they were not injured at all, but the shock in their hearts could not be calmed down. They are all well-informed professional bodyguards, so although they were shocked by Zhang Lu's superpowers, they were still not afraid. They just had to be more cautious. They got up from the ground, picked up the scattered weapons, checked them again, and came to Tony. "Mr. Stark, the people inside are extremely dangerous. I suggest you leave here now." "No, Stoker never escapes." Tony willfully rejected his reasonable suggestions. "Please believe me, Mr. Stark, the mutant inside is super dangerous." The head of the bodyguard wanted to persuade him, but was interrupted by Tony directly. "You mean, you can't keep me safe from him?" The head of the bodyguard looked at the playboy's contemptuous expression in front of him, and wanted to break his head, but he respectfully said, "No, Mr. Stark, whoever wants to kill you must step over our corpses." "Very good." Stark nodded with satisfaction, and reached for his sunglasses in his pocket, only to find that the sunglasses were already broken. He shrugged and walked towards the martial arts hall again. A group of bodyguards rushed up to protect Tony from inside to outside. After Tony walked around the screen wall, he immediately raised his hands and shouted, "Don't do it, I mean nothing, ah." Zhang Lu deliberately wanted to temper his temper. so he waved his hand again, and the group of people flew out again. The bodyguards were prepared this time, and fired as soon as he raised his hand, but the bullets had no effect and were swept away. A group of people fell in front of the martial arts hall like rain again. When the team came here, it was already very eye-catching. Although it is relatively remote here, there are still many people watching from a distance. When they were thrown out before, there were not too many people watching, but when they entered again, there were even more people watching. Gunshots came from the martial arts hall, which made the onlookers tremble with fear. Just as they were about to evade, they saw a group of people being thrown out again. Especially this time, Zhang deliberately punished and doubled the height of the fall, so many people directly broke their arms and legs. Fortunately, when they landed, they subconsciously dodged and did not break neck. When Tony landed, he was pulled by the head of the bodyguard, but he was not injured, but he also became very angry. Is he not even willing to talk? Tony, as I said, he only understands Chinese. So I have to learn Chinese, as he said. No, I mean, you can send an interpreter in. Okay, who of you understands Chinese? Tony turned to ask the bodyguards. Everyone shook their heads. Tony sighed and said, Happy, then you can find an interpreter. By the way, hurry up the ambulance. Someone is really in need this time. It was easy to find an interpreter. Happy went to the group of onlookers, took out a few dollars, and many people rushed to translate for Mr. Stark. Others heard that this was Tony Stark, not some gangster, so they felt relieved to stay and continue to watch the excitement. Tony told the interpreter what he wanted, and he let him in to deliver the letter. The translator who came in was a hangout in Chinatown, and he was familiar with many people in the martial arts hall, so he greeted the familiar people first when he came in, and then explained the purpose of his visit. Zhang felt that it was necessary to talk to Tony, so he nodded in agreement. The translator didn't take any risks, just passed a few words, earned a fortune, and went out happily to answer. After listening to the interpreter's cautious reply, Tony nodded in satisfaction. This is the right attitude. He has an inexplicable self-confidence in himself, and he always feels that as long as he can negotiate, he can persuade anyone. When he was about to enter again, he was stopped by the head of the bodyguard again. Mr. Stark, I hope you can think about it carefully. If you need it, I can bring a team over tonight and invite the guy inside to meet you at your residence. It will be much safer. Tony patted him on the shoulder and said, Relax, buddy, you saw that if he wanted to hurt me, he would have done it just now. He strode to the door of the martial arts hall, stopped again, turned around and said to the bodyguards who were following him, Anyway, you won't be able to do anything, so go back first. Of course, I will pay the fee. As he spoke, he glanced at the bullets scattered on the ground with his eyelids, turned around and led the translator and Happy into the martial arts hall. The captain of the bodyguard cursed angrily, feeling very aggrieved in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. He believed that as long as he gave himself enough time to prepare, a mere mutant could be easily taken down, and he could torture him however he wanted. But now he has no room to play at all, because he is just a bodyguard, and the boss has the final say on everything. After Tony came in this time, he was able to walk in front of Zhang smoothly. Wow, it really has 3 eyes. This is much stronger visual impact than what you see in the video, but it doesn't seem scary. There is no need to translate this sentence. I'm Tony Stark, maybe you don't know my name, but if you ask the people around you, they all know me. I know you have superpowers, but I also have money power. Now, if you want to buy your martial arts gym, you can make a price. This guy looks nothing like Tony Stark in the movie, but his temperament is surprisingly similar. Sure enough, Tony Stark is really a cheap, beating, and annoying guy. It's really hard to like. For Valkyrie, money is meaningless. Zhang did not invite him into the house for tea like he did when he met Nick, but stood in the courtyard and had a conversation with him. Zhang stretched out his hand, and a thunderbolt appeared out of thin air, bound by the magnetic field in his palm. He could play with it at will, and he could change into any shape he wanted. Ultimate Limitless Qigong, which can strengthen the spirit and spirit, simulates the electric current in the way of ancient martial arts Qigong, so that people can control the electric current at the beginning. The so-called thunder and lightning are just playthings in our hands. People with talent and strong will can cultivate to a high level, use electricity to generate magnetism, and successfully transform the current into a magnetic field rotation. And the magnetic field rotation is the original force of the universe, and it is an indispensable force for thousands of universes. As long as the rotation of the magnetic field can be possessed and cultivated, can strengthen the body, reorganize cells, harden matter, read thoughts, reorganize matter, control natural phenomena, and what's more, it can affect life, cause and effect, fate, space, time. Oh, it sounds like you're preaching. Tony didn't look surprised at all, he didn't believe it at all. He curled his lips and said, "This is not scientific at all." "No, it's very scientific, it's just that you don't understand it." "Huh, are you sure you want to discuss science with me?" Tony was annoyed. He pointed at Zhang Lu, and said very rudely, "I thought you were some kind of alien, but now it seems that you are a guy who wants to get rid of mutant status. It's very interesting to pretend to be an alien. I know that there are people with superpowers and mutants in this world. Although I haven't done research on them, your words can't fool me at all. These abilities are all derived from genes. Perhaps scientific transformation can also artificially create superpowers, but it will definitely not be something like you, which can be achieved by practicing any qigong. Arrogance stems from ignorance." Zhang Lu glanced at him contemptuously. "Without investigation, there is no right to speak. You talk nonsense and point fingers in a completely unfamiliar field, which will not make people admire your ingenuity. It will only make people admire you. People think that you are too arrogant and ignorant." TCH. Tony turned and walked away. The so-called buying a martial arts gym is just an excuse. He had already seen this nightmare today, and felt that he was just a charlatan, a mutant charlatan with superpowers. He had absolutely no reason to fear such a thing. Tony Stark woke up again from the nightmare. "I obviously took sleeping pills." Tony got up from the bed angrily, picked up the water glass next to the bed, and drank a glass of ice water. After he regained consciousness, he came straight to the laboratory downstairs in his pajamas. "Jarvis, find out for me, which mutant has the ability to continuously create nightmares for people." In the process of searching for information, the estimated time is 1 hour and 23 minutes. Tony went to the refrigerator to get a bottle of beer, lying on the sofa, sipping slowly one after another, with a gloomy face and flickering eyes. He suspects that the nightmares he has been having come from the ability of a certain mutant, and its purpose may be for money, or he may want to use his social status to change the situation of mutants and so on. "Good way," he murmured, "but you're looking for the wrong person." He threw the wine bottle away, got up and began to look up the information. Thanks to his identity, he can see a lot of classified materials and information. Even if the content is not open to him, he can steal it through Jarvis. Soon, he got a lot of public research results on mutants. As for those things that cannot be disclosed, or even mentioned, they are not connected to the external network at all. No matter how high his technical level is, no matter how powerful the supercomputing speed is, it is useless. His genius-like brain began to run at high speed that day, flipping through these materials at a glance, quickly digesting and assimilating the research results on mutants inside. After the information search was completed, no information about mutants with matching abilities was found. The scope of this search covers all public information, as well as some government, military, scientific research institutions, group companies and other databases. However, it cannot be ruled out that there are mutants in this part of the database possibilities that exist outside. "I see, it's not important anymore." Tony pushed away the documents in front of him. "Jarvis, I need something." He began dictating a bunch of materials and asked Jarvis to place the order. A few seconds later, Jarvis replied, "The order has been completed, and the estimated delivery time is 7 days. Too slow, I'll have it before I go to bed tomorrow night." "Okay, triple the price has been paid, and all items will be delivered by 19 o'clock tomorrow afternoon." Jarvis is now very intelligent, completely accustomed to his master's style of beating people with money. "Very good." Tony nodded with satisfaction, took out a pen and paper, and began to design the structure diagram of the item. He wants to create a room that can isolate the ability of mutants, and remove the mutant ability that affects him through nightmares. After he solves his own problems, he will take the time to let the mutants in the martial arts gym have a taste. The money is amazing. In front of a big capitalist like himself, why pretend to be coercive, and say, for the Valkyrie, money is meaningless. After the special team captured him, Tony wanted to see if he could still maintain that calm and breezy pretense. Tony, who was engaged in scientific research, was very energetic and kept busy until dawn. When Pepper came, he didn't notice it. Hey Tony, didn't you sleep last night? What were you doing? Wow, don't worry about me, Pepper, after I assemble this thing, I will definitely sleep well tonight, the kind that will sleep until noon tomorrow. Tony hugged Pepper and said with a playful smile. Pepper shook his head helplessly, and dissuaded him, Tony, you have to pay attention to your health problems. You are already in your 30s this year. I don't want to see you die young. I have a regular physical examination, Pepper, I am in good health. Tony said seriously, don't worry about me, I just lack of sleep recently, everything will return to normal soon, I promise. Tony used some sweet words again to make Pepper smile. After Pepper left, Tony checked his design carefully again, and asked Jarvis to review it again. After finding no errors, he put away the design drawing and waited for the materials to arrive before assembling. It was already bright now, and he was very sleepy, so he ate some hamburgers casually, and went back to the bedroom to sleep. When he woke up from the nightmare again, the sky had already dimmed. This nightmare has become more and more frequent recently, and this matter must be resolved today. He looked up and asked, Jarvis, where is the cargo? Some have already been delivered and are being placed in the underground storage area. The rest are on the way and are expected to be delivered within 2 hours. Do you need to send the existing goods to the laboratory? Send it here first, I'm going to assemble it now. Tony couldn't wait for a moment now, he couldn't wait to get a good night's sleep. He is one of the top engineers in the world. With only a bunch of broken tools, he was able to make the first steel armor in the cave. Now he wants to assemble an instrument that isolates the abilities of mutants. You reading www. Uakanshu.com is not in the slightest embarrassment. As the materials were delivered one after another, his assembly speed became faster and faster. Finally, after 3 hours, a bunch of boxes of the same size as stereos were assembled. He adjusted it carefully, measured it with precision instruments, and finally, he was convinced that this thing could effectively isolate the superpowers of mutants from spreading in the air. Very good, I can finally sleep well tonight. Tony straightened up, stretched his tired muscles, clapped his hands proudly, and looked at the masterpiece he had spent nearly a day on. He transported these things to the bedroom with a cart, then installed them in various calculated positions, and tested them again, and they were in good condition. Only then did he lie back on the bed in peace, ready to enjoy his long-lost sleep. A few hours later, Tony Stark woke up from the nightmare again. Why didn't it work? Tony got up from the bed and checked the equipment, but the equipment was still working well without any failure. He took out the design drawing again, checked it carefully several times, and still found no problems with the design. He returned to the laboratory again, took out the relevant materials again, and read them carefully to see if there were any key data or information that he had overlooked. But unfortunately, after tossing all night, he still didn't find out what went wrong. The sun rose, and through the large floor-to-ceiling windows of the villa, it sprinkled warm sunlight on Tony, who was sitting on the sofa. After a long time, Tony let out a breath, and his eyes resurfaced. Exclude all the impossible, and whatever remains, no matter how unbelievable, must be the truth. That guy is not a mutant, he is actually an alien. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.